The Mill Creek City Council to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance with the Mayor Pro Tem lead us tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adrian, roll call, please.
Mayor Holtzclaw,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Vignal,
Here.
Councilmember Cavallari,
Here.
Councilmember Steckler,
Here.
Councilmember Allison, Councilmember Duque,
Here.
Councilmember Paddock.
Present. Councilmember Allison informed the Mayor Pro Tem that she was not going to be able to make it tonight. So can we have a motion to excuse?
Move to excuse Councilmember Allison.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0. We'll move to audience communications. There's opportunity for the public to comment anything on or not on the agenda. We'll start with anyone in the audience who would like to speak to the council. Anyone? Going once, twice?
I would like to.
Oh, I haven't got online yet. I will get online in just a sec. I'm just in chambers. There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting, but we'll go online. First hand I saw up was Ms. Graves, also known as Barb Heidel. Name, address, in 3 minutes, please.
Barb Heidel, 1401 144th Place, Southeast Mill Creek. Hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. It was so good to see the great attendance at the party in the park last week. The South County Fire District was awesome, giving out the life preserver vests. I saw many children going around the park in their new vests. Thank goodness we had really nice weather for them. I wish to thank Scott and Jody for all their organizing and hard work to make the evening such a fun, successful time. Awesome job. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Did I hear Ms. Johnson wants to address the council?
Yes, thank you. I'm trying to get
Name, address in 3 minutes, please.
Yeah, so my name is April Johnson. I live at 3133 147th Place Southeast. That's in Brighton. And I did want to address my concerns and that of my neighbors with the agenda item about potentially adding a dog park to Cougar Park. So I've lived in Brighton for about 9 years. I can see the entrance of the park from my front yard, and I have 2 kids. One goes to Mill Creek Elementary and another at Heatherwood. And I have a lot of concerns about the potential dog park. First off, there's 2 dog parks within, a couple mile radius of us. And the houses in our neighborhood and those around have pretty large yards. So I feel like it would be better served to have it in a neighborhood that has more like denser housing, whereby people don't have yards to have their dogs. The other concern that I have is that Mill Creek residents from outside will be coming. There's only 2 parking spots there at Cougar Park. And we have so much crowding and traffic problems with the school events, church events, and people parking on 148th, 147th, and 31st. And there's an unsignaled crosswalk that leads from our neighborhood to the school. And so any type of additional crowding or traffic really concerns me about that. And also, I just feel like there might be some other options for doing development if we have funding, but it might be nice just to leave that open space, not have any noise, pollution, or crowding, and just keep it wild. So that was everything I had on that topic.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else online like to address the council? And once, twice, 3 times, there'll be an opportunity again at the end of the meeting. Martin, are you gonna welcome Greg?
Yes, I will, Mayor. I'd like to welcome Greg Owen, the President of the Chamber of Commerce, to present the Chamber's key priorities, kind of where they're heading into the future. I'm excited to work with Greg and on their initiative to support the city's economic development going forward. And they're aligned with us in many ways. And one is that they do support the city's interest in supporting all businesses across City of Mill Creek, business property owners, as well as our visitors that come into the city. Greg.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Good evening, Council, Mayor Pro Tem, folks, it's good to see you here. I do have a slideshow and I'm just going to use that kind of as our outline to go through some of the information I want to share. Before we get going on that, I want to make this a regular thing, right? And whether that's once a year. That one good? Good. All right. Whether we make that once a year or a more frequent timing on that will yet to be seen. But what I can tell you is we're not going to do it a week before the festival, and we're not going to do it on the night that the chamber is sponsoring and hosting the concert series. Because as soon as I'm done speaking to you, I'm heading up there. So we'll pick a better day next year or next time. So I do have just a few slides that I'm going to run through. Kind of our state of the chamber, where we're at. There's a lot of things happening with the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce this year, and it's pretty exciting. And everywhere I go, I get an opportunity to talk to a business owner who says, I want to join the chamber. You guys got some cool stuff going on. That happened tonight when I was ordering pizzas for the concert tonight. So that's good stuff. That means good word is getting out there. And it's coming in large part because we have folks that are members of the Chamber's board. Councilmember Duque, Brian Trendler is another one of our new board members. And so we're really infusing a lot of energy into what's going on in the community. And we're really encouraged by the work we're doing with the city right now. So a little bit of history. The chamber was incorporated as a chamber in 2019, but it's existed since 1997 as the Mill Creek Business Association. The business association was rooted really in the festival and community related events. It was an opportunity for influential and other businesses in town to kind of get together and say, hey, let's start doing some good stuff for the community because we've been taken care of. Let's take care of the folks that have helped us be successful. And so that really was the roots of it. And it has grown from there. We're getting ready to have our 22nd festival coming up here on the 15th and 16th of this month. So just 10 days away now. Next, please. So we have 4 membership levels at the chamber, and we've kind of outlined them here. Each one of those represents a different level of networking opportunities, a different level of support, a different level of marketing that the chamber will do with the member businesses. This has existed in its form for many, many years. And it's one of the things that as new leadership has come into the chamber, we've scratched our heads and asked ourselves, is this the best way to do this? And maybe it is, but we've got some folks that are board members and our paid director that have been working really hard to identify, is this the right way? And if it's not, what is it? And then I don't know, whatever's next, there we go. And then make some adjustments as we need to moving forward. 86 businesses are members of the Chamber of Commerce as of last week, and we're growing. That number has, we've added a dozen or so members this year, new businesses that have come into the chamber. Next. So I put this up there because somebody suggested, hey, you got to put a QR code on your slide so people can scan it. But that's an opportunity if you want to find out about the different membership levels for the chamber, what that means. The city is part of, our ongoing communications. The city, we hope, will become a member of the Chamber of Commerce at some point here pretty soon. And that's something that the city manager and I have been talking about. Could we back up? Because I think that I forgot to, there we go. I wanted to talk about the number of members at each one of these levels, because I think it's important to get an idea of who's a visionary member, who's a general member, and so forth. Our visionary members tend to be the bigger businesses in town, the North Creek Roofings, long established businesses like that have been very successful for a long time. They join at that higher membership level, which, like I said, gives them more exposure in our electronic media, and their name gets to be on the sponsor boards at all of the events and things like that. And as we roll kind of down back a little bit, I myself, as a real estate broker, I'm a community member, And again, that gives us a little bit more exposure to marketing. It's about building business, and that's what the Chamber of Commerce really is about. Our neighborhood members, you see we've got a decent number of neighborhood members. That's where a lot of the folks have been kind of coming in at this year. We've got 55 general members. And what's cool about that is we've got 55 general members, and just off the top of my head, I can think half a dozen who have increased their membership from a general member to something higher in the last 6 months or so, including myself. I was a neighborhood member and I increased my participation because I saw the value in the marketing for me and helped build my business. So anyway, I wanted to mention that. Okay, next please. There you go, QR code. All right. Chamber leadership consists of board of directors. We have an executive board, which is the president, vice president, secretary and treasurer. And then we've got 7 members at large, which are business owners or entrepreneurs, or in Councilmember Duquesne's case, elected folks from the community. And the idea behind bringing a diverse group of folks, and I should mention, Mike Todd is a board member as well. And the idea about bringing in folks like Mike and Councilmember Duque and all the other folks, Brian and Jaco and all these folks that are members, is to bring a diverse approach to business, right? Because Mike doesn't own a business, but Mike has got a lot of expertise that can help our board kind of formulate where we want to go and what we want to do. And I'm a new business owner. You know, I've been in my business for only a few years now, so I can learn from those kinds of things. And Brian runs I don't know, 100 different businesses. So we have these folks that create this board that can just help us stay fresh, stay relevant, and keep our minds open. And that's one of the biggest things that I've seen so far this year as we've gotten into kind of the big change in the chamber is we've really opened our minds up and asked a lot of questions. Why? What can we do better? And how can we go from good to great? And a big part of that is just the people, right? The people that comprise the board and those 86 businesses that come to us and say, hey, I own a business. I'm a chamber member. I want something that gives me some value out of this. Cool. What is it that you want that gives you value? Let's see if we can do that. And then our immediate past president, and I really need to just spend a few seconds talking about Kevin Gibney, who is our immediate past president, who has been president of the Chamber of Commerce, and then prior to that, the Business Association for 15 years or more, and has been just an absolute pillar in this community with the festival especially, but just everything business related around here. So we've kept Kevin on. I tell him, you don't get a vote, but you know, you can stick around and come to the meetings. But it's valuable to have that type of institutional knowledge, because a lot of times we do ask the question, why do we do this? And sometimes there's only one person that can say, this is why we do it. Okay, that makes sense. There's a lot of value there. Next, please. So we do have one paid employee at the Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce. We have a paid director, and this kind of lists some of the director's duties, but it's day-to-day operation of the chamber. So administrative function, websites, and you know, the things that go along with interacting with other chambers, working with the businesses on recruitment and retention. So that's a big thing that we ask of our directors, to go out there and kind of hit the streets a little bit and work on recruitment, retention, make sure we're meeting the needs of our current members, and then looking for folks that are businesses that aren't members that maybe want to be, and see if we can't do that. Now that's a function of everybody on the board. And it's a function of everybody that's a member of the Chamber of Commerce. But we do have one person who's kind of responsible for that on the day-to-day. Jeff also represents our chamber countywide. We are doing, in addition to the concert series tonight, it's the Engage Mill Creek, which is something that we started at the beginning of this year. It's a networking opportunity. There are a few other chambers and business groups, Snohomish and Everett, that do these Engage events. And so we've coordinated ours, so it's not on the same night as theirs. So, you know, 3 Wednesdays in a row, you can go around from Snohomish to Everett to Mill Creek, and it's really building some good cohesiveness. You know, we believe in collaboration instead of competition, right? Now, certainly, and I give the other real estate agents in the chamber a hard time, it's like, whatever. I'm the real estate agent for the chamber, but the reality is that we all work together and we can all build our businesses stronger if we collaborate. So that's key for us as we've moved into this year, is to really work with the other chambers and business associations around the county. So in addition to that's it, and then that last bullet point is something that, you know, we've been working hard to try and find some opportunity to have a home. We've been homeless a few times. We're kind of homeless right now. We've had the opportunity to have meeting spaces due to, you know, the grace and goodwill of folks in our business community. But it seems like every time Dr. Lamarche and Vien Bowie get us a space that we can have a meeting room, then they promptly lease it out. So we're their good luck charm when it comes to their vacant spaces, but they've now leased all of their vacant spaces. And so that's another conversation that the city manager and I are engaged in. We've been using the meeting rooms in City Hall North for our general meetings for the last few months, and that's worked out very well. It's a good facility. It's a good location. It's easy for people to get to. But we want to take that next step, right? And that next step for us is a home where we can hang a sign on the door and we can put one in the window. And we can be there when people Google Mill Creek Chamber of Commerce, it comes up with an address. This isn't a leased building that belongs to somebody else, but is actually where we're at with a phone number, where we can be that place when people call the city or when people call us or just get on Google, that they can come to, that our director can staff a visitor center and greet folks when they come and go, provide tourist materials. If you've ever visited Chamber of Commerce offices in any other towns or cities. I was just in Kingston for the weekend, and right on the main street there is the Kingston Chamber of Commerce with every little brochure you could think of. Now they were closed because they're having a huge 4th of July event, but ordinarily there's somebody there to answer those questions. And so that's where we're trying to get to. So coming soon. Next slide, please. So right now we talk about this in our board meetings that the chamber is supported by 2 main pillars. And I'm going to go to the second one first, which is our community involvement and our community engagement. And that is things like the Mill Creek Festival. That is things like our scholarship programs. That's things like the Mill Creek Classic Golf Tournament. And thanks to Chief White, because he's on the committee for the Mill Creek Classic Golf Tournament. That's coming up at the end of August, 28th, 29th. 28th. Okay. That last Monday of August. But those are fantastic events that the chamber's been involved in. And as I mentioned, rooted, you know, back in the business association days. And so we are really, really good at that. We put on a first-rate festival. I imagine everyone has been, and it's going to be another great event this year. Our golf tournament is 6th year this year of the golf tournament. That raises money for youth programs supporting things like academics and athletic programs and other groups, youth groups that maybe need some help somewhere along the line. And then at the festival, our scholarship program is also supported by the beer garden. And so we have that with the live music on Saturdays and Sundays, and we serve beer and wine and sodas inside of there. Now, we are going to charge this year, so bring $5 when you come down to the festival beer garden, because it's become necessary for us to kind of cover some of those costs. But the proceeds from that go towards our scholarship programs. And so we're really, really good and have been very good at those types of things for a long time. But that first bullet point is supporting our business community. And when I took on this role late last year, that was the questions that I started asking folks, right? Is what value can the chamber provide? What can we do for you to give you value for that $12.50 a year you pay us, or your $2.50 a year that you pay us? And so we started hearing these things, right? I need some business development support. I need extra marketing opportunities. I need more networking opportunities. And so those are the things we put a lot of effort and energy into this year, and where we're really starting to build, because that's that equally as important pillar, because we have to remember it's the Chamber of Commerce, right? And commerce has its meaning. And so we're working really hard to build that second pillar. But that's basically, now, it would be great to have a third pillar. I'll talk about that because I mean, a stool with 2 legs isn't as strong as a stool with 3. But that's one of the things that we're charged with figuring out as board members. So next slide, please. So what does that mean to support our business community? Educational opportunities, right? We want to get out and give people the things that they need. Do they need help with, hey, I just opened a business, I don't know anything about this, that, or the other thing? Okay, cool. We have experts in that field. We have businesses in that field. We've already started to do this, started to bring some of our member businesses in to do presentations and education opportunities for the rest of the membership. Networking opportunities is huge, especially with some of those lower level or less experienced businesses like myself. It's really important to have networking opportunities so I can get out, which is why we're doing the Engage events, which is why we're sponsoring the concert series tonight. And then partnering with our government groups, city, county, and state governments to be able to find opportunities that may exist. You know, there are grant opportunities out there. There are education opportunities out there. A lot of economic development energy comes from the various levels of local, county, and state government. And we want to be able to bring those folks together, right, and take advantage of those opportunities and help them out with that. Next slide, please. A little bit about our community involvement. I'm not going to get too deep into it because I kind of mentioned it all, but there it all is. One thing I want to point out is we awarded $12,000 in scholarships this year. That's 6 $2,000 scholarships to graduating seniors from our area high schools or homeschool students that would ordinarily feed into those areas, kind of a geographic criteria there. Again, the golf tournament, August 28th. We're about full. If anybody wants to put together a foursome to go golfing, we're about full. We're really close, if not full. Yeah. Let me tell you, I'm a horrible golfer and I have a great time because it's best ball, and I just have to have somebody on my team that can play golf halfway well, and then I can just sponge off of them. So if you're interested, it's a great time. And then the festival, again, coming up here quick. Next slide, please. So where we're headed, what we're trying to do with, you know, where we're at and what we've built so far and where we want to get to by the end of the year. We're trying to increase our membership by 20%, which will put us just over 100 members by the end of the year. We've set some goals for our director, right? We've put together some expectations and goals, and so the director can get out there and really start working with the businesses to see if we can't get that done. Establish that office space in visitor/tourist business center like we talked about. Really continue the path that we're on right now with formalizing our relationship with you folks, with the city staff and the city elected officials. Formalize some of our procedures is something I mentioned here. We have a lot of institutional knowledge and we do a lot of things, but if some of us win the lottery and leave and don't come back, then the person who takes our place is left standing wondering what to do next. And so a good organization needs to have some procedures in place, needs to have a book or something secret somewhere that the new president can pick up and say, okay, this is how we do this kind of thing. And then identify those areas where we can really improve the service to our members and be responsive and give them what they need. I've mentioned it several times, but it's hugely important. Next slide, please. What we want to accomplish, bringing that consistent value. We want to be the resource. We want to be the place when somebody has tourist related, business related, visitor related questions, that we want to be that place. We want to provide them. We have the expertise and the interest with our membership businesses to do that kind of thing. We want to do that. Now, again, it's commerce, right? If our member businesses are the face of, or the one that answers the questions, that's good for their business. That helps them grow. Any business that grows in this town is good for all of us in this room. And so we want to be that resource. Keep our community engagement opportunities top notch. We're going to do that this year. I'm doing something different in the beer garden. For those of you that enjoy a cold beer or a glass of wine or sodas, we are now using tapped Mill Creek, which is one of the newest businesses here in Mill Creek. They are going to be our beer and wine provider at the Mill Creek Festival. In years past, we've worked with Anheuser-Busch, and before that, I believe it was Columbia Distributing before Anheuser-Busch bought them out. But it was important to the festival committee this year to find a local provider, right? So now we've got a new chamber member, we've got a new business in Mill Creek, and they're going to be the highlight or the focus at least of the beer garden and concert series, right? They'll be there with Branded and their employees doing great things to build their business, draw attention to their business. And that's, again, good for all of us all the way around. And then that last one, explore possibilities of a third pillar. What is it going to be? That three-legged stool that's stronger than a two-legged stool. And it's going to have to be something creative. It's going to have to be something cool. And it needs to come from not just board members and membership businesses, but elected officials and the professionals that work on these types of things for the city and the county and the state as well. So we want to keep all of those options open and see what that third pillar can be. Next slide, please. Staff, Jeff Ritter's our chamber director. Many of you probably know Jeff. Jeff, like I said, is our one paid employee and he works his tail off. That's me. Stephanie McQuarrie is our vice president. She was with First Financial Northwest Bank. She's taken a little bit of a leave because she's a brand new grandma. And so she's spending time with family right now, remote. So she's working remote, but you know what, we can all work remote these days, right? Shelley Wingert from Wingert Insurance is our secretary. Bill Temple is a retired banker who I kid you not. I think he keeps money buried in coffee cans in the backyard. He's been retired that long. I think I told him that the first transaction he did as a banker was when a guy came in with a chunk of gold and said, "How much can I get for this?" I'm pretty sure that was it. And then our board members at large mentioned Mike Todd and Brian Trendler and Councilmember Duque, but also Jeff Kyle with Active Martial Arts, Jay Coe with I Am Third Media. Sierra Schramm is the branch manager at People's Bank, and then Brian. Next slide, please. So questions, that's our contact information. That's me, that's Jeff. We're the primary points of contact, but you can reach out to anybody in the chamber if you want some more information, but we get most of it and we're happy to take it. And I think that's it. Next. That's it.
Thank you, Greg. Any questions, comments from council? Councilmember Cavallari.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate seeing you tonight. Thanks for the presentation. Generally, what could the city provide to a business association? I'm sure you have an idea or a list of wants. I mean, I know there's the relationship piece and all that shit, but what do we
Sure.
What can we do?
So as we've looked at this, we've looked at what's happening in other cities and the relationships between the chambers and the other cities. And it varies widely. So we look at all of that, where we're at, what we're trying to accomplish. As I mentioned, a home. I sound like I'm pleading for a home, but I'm pleading for a home. That is our number one priority right now. And a commitment that we've made to our member businesses is to figure that out. And that's something, again, that the city manager and I have been working on. We want this to be a mutually advantageous relationship. We want to be the business resource, the economic development resource for the city, because your staff at this point just doesn't allow for a lot of that to happen. So we want to be able to provide that. That's our number one ask. Our number one want is to see if we can't formalize this. Let's get us a home here. We've looked at a lot of other chambers, the Mukilteo Chamber. They live in a building owned by the city of Mukilteo, and the Edmonds Chamber lives in a building owned by the city of Edmonds. They're right in their main city hall. And so we've seen these kinds of things work successfully around the area. But then where does that relationship go from there? I've mentioned just kind of throwing things at the wall sometimes that, you know, it'd be great to have some sort of a grant program. If the city has, you know, I'll just use ARPA because that's the first thing that comes to my mind. But if the city has money that they're looking to dedicate towards some sort of business development program, maybe the chamber can be the one that can help administrate that. Again, there's a challenge with your staffing, with what you have available to be able to do it. I don't think Scott wants to do it. Scott doesn't want to do it, but we could help out, right? We could be that. And so we want to look for those opportunities moving forward and really model a lot of our city chamber relationships after what we've seen work successfully in some other cities and with their chambers.
Thank you.
Councilmember Steckler.
Hey, Greg,
Go.
great presentation. Man.
Thank you.
I have three different questions. They're probably quick answers. Business Association, I just wanted to confirm this. Did the chamber replace the business association or are they still around?
The business association became the chamber.
That's right.
So we went through a process with the Secretary of State to change the name, change our status. And so it has evolved into a business association no longer exists.
You also mentioned you're talking with the city about becoming a member. I was under the impression the city was a member. Did we used to be a member of the chamber?
So there's been, again, there's some institutional knowledge lacking here on both the side of the chamber and on the side of the city, because some of us are relatively new in our roles. And so we don't know exactly what that official relationship was. I believe, as you do, that the city paid some sort of membership to be part of the chamber at some point. I also know that there were some sponsorship work done when it came time for the festival, and that the city provided the chamber with some sponsorship money to help support the festival activities. But then the chamber paid the city for some support work. So I'm not exactly sure how all that happened, and there are not a lot of people around that do. So we just want to formalize that.
Okay.
And as part of our ongoing conversations, how can we do that? We do a lot of in-kind memberships with some of our businesses that provide a lot of work for the chamber, graphic art stuff, and you know, I can't think of any specifics right now, but there are a number of members that provide services to the chamber, and we give them a membership in kind. So they'll come and teach, and they'll come and do presentations, or we'll do work behind the scenes, and in turn we'll give them a membership. So we look at that same kind of model with the city, right? If we're working on some arrangement for office space, visitor center, then maybe that's part of that equation.
So the city is not a member. You're understanding we did at one time have some type of relationship,
Correct.
membership. Okay, that was mine too. Last question I got for you. Tourism. What role does a chamber usually play in the area of tourism? Nothing, a big part?
It should be a big part, right? Because tourism, a lot of our businesses will rely heavily on tourism. A lot of our members rely heavily on tourism. And so we want to promote that. And again, I'm new, so I haven't heard all the brilliant ideas on how we're going to do that, but we want to market the city. We want to be a tourism resource. As I mentioned, you know, it's as simple as here's a display of all the cool things to do in Mill Creek, and then connect folks to the right resources to do that. We also want to work with, and we're in this process right now with the county's tourism bureau, right? What can we do to work with them, because they're the experts. And you know, tourism has been thrown around as a you know, a term in the city, I know, for many years. And, you know, we've asked ourselves, well, why, and what does that mean? And I still don't think that we all have a clear answer on what that means. And we talked about, well, we've got all these great restaurants and that brings people here. And we've got sports fields and that brings people here. Those are all cool things. I think we just need to get a good grasp of it. And what do we want to try and accomplish? And that's, again, in some of my conversations with your staff is, you know, how can we do that together? What does the city want? What does the chamber want?
I would really support that. I'm also curious as to what other chambers do with the cities. If we could learn, like, what examples of other relationships, because I'm sure we could learn from that. And that's a big positive third leg for both of us is tourism.
And so we look at things like the festival
Yeah.
is a tourism draw, right?
Huge, huge.
For what we have available to us in Mill Creek, the festival is a big tourism draw. It brings a lot of people in. How can we market that further and wider? And go to my Facebook, like and share my Facebook video if you want to. But how can we do that, right? The festival's coming. And so how can we leverage that even more? And we look at the different the different chambers and what they do with their events, as in Mukilteo, as in Edmonds. And a lot of it comes down to marketing those events and just getting a bigger feel out there. I saw the Oak Harbor Festival was advertised on the back of a bus driving down 405 a couple of weeks ago. I'm like, well, why in the heck can't we put one of those on the back of a bus? Somebody might drive to Mill Creek. I was in Kingston all weekend long, and I had my Mill Creek Festival t-shirt hanging on the back of my boat to anybody who walked by. And I had a couple of people ask me, what's the festival? Well, come on over and check it out. So we need to do more of that kind of thing. Okay.
Councilmember Paddock.
Thanks for the presentation, Greg. I just wanted to say I've been going to the city, the Chamber of Commerce events for 18 months, 24 months or so. The first one I went to, Lunch and Learn, there were 6 of us. I was one of the 6. And the last one that I went to, I mean, it was a packed house. They had folks get up and give their pitch. I ran out of there as soon as possible. I wasn't going to do that, but nonetheless, it was a fantastically well-attended event. The engaged events are also terrific tonight. The one they had, there was someone that the week before was at Snohomish, and the week before that was at the Everett one. So that ability to kind of bring folks from other businesses into our community looking for business and vice versa, I think is just really something that you and Jeff and team and the board should be lauded for putting together. It's a real benefit to the city and a real opportunity for our business owners. So thank you for the work you're doing.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. And just to maybe follow up just a little bit, I think that it would be really helpful. I think all of us would love to see a good relationship, of course, with the business association, perhaps providing the council up here with a roadmap of what that looks like and how we get to the points that you're trying to make. And I know the urgent need now is a place, and we can certainly get to work on that. But I think there's a long game that we're trying to play here. And I see it as a win-win, right? A healthy business association means healthy city. So I think with a little more, aside from the usual head nods, hey, it sounds like a great idea, which is where we're at, some more specifics, what that looks like on paper.
Yeah, you bet. And that's been specifics like that have been a large part of the conversations that I've had with staff about what does that look like? You know, something like as simple as we want to outreach to every single business in town, right? Whether they're a chamber member or not, we want to engage with those folks. And ideally, we can engage with those folks and they'll become chamber members. But if we can engage and they choose not to, then that's okay too, because now we can establish this conduit for information to flow. So when we have opportunities or information, or the city wants to get something out, we can be that conduit. And once we get to a point where we outreach to every business in town, there are a lot of untapped businesses out there. Then we can really start to, yes, it would be great if they joined the chamber, but it's not necessary. We just want to be able to have the outreach. And so that's one example of kind of that roadmap. What do we want to accomplish by formalizing this relationship? We've got something that we're working on right now. We're going to reach out to we're in the process, reaching out to all of the work from home businesses in Mill Creek and just putting together some sort of a forum for all those people that just are themselves and they work from home. Me, right? Just themselves and they work from home. Let's engage with those folks. Let's create some sort of an opportunity where we can bring them into one big room if they want to, or Zoom in if they want to. And we can talk about what's going on in business, what's happening in your world that you could share with us that's going to help everybody else. And then create that, just get that conversation going, which is part of that. Thanks, Greg.
Other questions, comments? Thank you, Greg. Look forward to seeing where this takes us with the city and the chamber. It's been fun the last couple of years and hopefully we'll have some more ribbon cuttings coming up soon.
Yes,
I know
we
we
will.
have one next week that Vince is covering for us.
That's
so-
right. You'll be there.
Yeah, so-
The scissors are sharpened, so we're ready to go. Yeah, sorry. Thank you very much. I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
run off to a concert.
Good to see you.
Thank you. I forgot off the top of my head. I just got back today from Kingston and spent the last few hours cleaning myself and then getting ready to come here. So
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Good. Thank you, Brian. If there's no objection, I'd like to make a quick change to the agenda and do item 8B before item 8A, do the board appointments. Is that okay? Okay, hearing no objection, I'll turn it over to the Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Paddock and Mayor Holtzclaw and I met and interviewed for the Arts and Beautification Board today, as well as the Planning Commission. And so we have one appointment to make for the Planning Commission this evening. And so we would like to recommend Matthew Geiger to the Planning Commission this evening. Did anyone have any,
Is that a motion?
oh, do you want me to do that? I couldn't remember how.
Yes,
So
please
I
make
will
a
start
motion.
with, I would move to appoint Matthew Geiger to the Planning Commission for a term expiring on April 30th, 2026.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Councilmember Duque.
Could you tell us a little bit about why the recommendation and any information about the candidate?
Sure. Would one of you like to say anything or do you want me to say?
I'll let you handle it.
Okay.
Or why
Yeah.
you chose him, or anything that you want to
Sure.
share?
No, we were really impressed with Matt. He actually is working on some planning issues for the city of Mukilteo on their staff. So he brings that perspective. He also brings interesting perspective because he lives down just down from the town center as well. So he brings in some new perspective there. And we really appreciate, we thought he brought to the table some things that we don't have currently on the planning commission. So that's why we picked him.
He's an engineer with some planning experience.
That too.
Who would like to walk to work?
Okay, if there's any further discussion. no fur-
I do have a quick question
Yeah.
now that you mentioned. I know we created some new parameters for the planning commission. So I just want to make sure that he falls in line with those parameters.
resides in
or
the
she.
He
Apartments.
resides in the city of Mill Creek.
Yes, he does.
Thank you.
Within
Mayor Pro
walking
Tem.
distance.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. And we had advertised for one vacancy on the Arts and Beautification Committee. And we did have 2 applicants this evening. We do have a few new vacancies that will be going back out to be advertised. So we will be picking one tonight and recommending one tonight. And we did recommend that our other applicant would reapply to be considered again. But we have moved to appoint Michael Scherping to the Arts and Beautification Board for a term expiring October 31st, 2026.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Councilmember Duque.
Could you please let us know why
Sure.
your recommendation?
Absolutely. We were really impressed with Michael. Well, we know that he is involved in lots of different areas in the city. We do run into him on a regular basis. And he also had quite a few interesting ideas to bring to the table for the Arts and Beautification Board. He had quite a few things in mind. He was understanding of the role of what the Arts and Beautification Board is and had things in mind that fall in line with that. So we were really impressed with the breadth of knowledge and thought that he had put into things that he thought that he could bring to bear. So we were really impressed with him. You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. City Manager.
Yeah, we're all familiar with catch basins project. I've been working on for most of 2023, a contract that was executed late 2022. We have our surface water engineer here to present to us a presentation. We would like to bring to council a resolution that would extend that or increase actually the amount of the contract to an amount that would allow us to work on the final stages of the project. So, Angela.
Good evening, council. You may remember me from my last stellar performance when I exited from behind this podium and took the microphone with me. So notice they have tried to facilitate that not happening tonight. All right, let's see. So, good evening. My name is Angela Bolton. I'm the city's stormwater coordinator.
Can you share screen?
Oh, sorry. Adrian, you were supposed to help me out. Where is it?
Right on the bottom of the Zoom. The green.
It isn't there.
Okay, I can just share for you.
Yes, there you go.
Looks good enough.
There we go. All right. So tonight I'm bringing in front of you an amendment to contract 2022-1692, which was the public MS4 catch basin and stormwater facility inspection project. So if you'll remember, when I came to you last fall and asked for your authorization for this contract, I warned you I would probably be back again. So just like Eminem, Shady's back. Okay, so you also might remember this graphic, which is a snippet of the catch basins throughout Mill Creek. So the catch basin and facility inspections are required by the current Western Washington Phase 2 municipal stormwater permit. They are all catch basins and inlets that are owned by the city must be inspected every 2 years. Also, if they are found to be in need of being cleaned, which means that greater than 60% of their sump capacity is occupied, then we have to do that within 6 months of making that determination. So inspections require variable levels of traffic control and traffic control planning. And what you see in this diagram or this graphic is the areas they've mostly covered, which are the smaller residential streets that require less traffic control and less traffic control planning. So when I approached you last fall, we had presented information that said we wanted the authorization to proceed with this level of inspection. And we reserved as an optional task the inspections that would be occurring along the arterials and the state highways and signalized intersections. So that's what the last 2 bullet points are about. In that contract 2022-1692 Exhibit B, where you authorize tasks 1 and 2, we had tasks 3 and 4 listed as optional. So what you see here is what I have used to track the performance of these inspections, which have been done by the contractor that we hired. So this is a dashboard that you can build with ArcGIS online, although it's possible to do this through an enterprise GIS system as well, and there are advantages to that. So what you see here is that they've completed about 2,500 inspections. like I said, through the residential areas. So what you see in the attached diagram is that I have grayed out all the catch basins themselves, so you can focus on the areas that they still need to inspect, which are along State Route 96 or 132nd, as you may refer to it, Highway 527, 164th, Seattle Hill Road, and 35th Avenue Southeast. That's about 400, 400 to 500 inspections that need to be done. Here was to refresh your memory, was Exhibit B from the contract that you approved last fall. Tasks 1 and 2 were authorized for a total of $147,634. And of that, $109,270 has been billed for inspections completed through the end of May of this year. So now we're looking at completion of tasks 3 and 4, requiring an amendment to this contract to increase the consultant's compensation by $141,322 to a total of $288,956. So staff budget tracking shows the city's 2023-2024 adopted budget has sufficient appropriation in the surface water utility fund to cover the additional costs of tasks 3 and 4, with $506,729 currently remaining after what has been billed to date. So this was a short and sweet presentation, and I'd like to thank you and entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just wanted to present an aside. Let's see if I can actually link out to this. Yeah. So, can you see this? Okay. Yeah. So, just as an example, one of the important aspects of cleaning out catch basins is that they're usually filled with sediment and vegetative material. And water quality contaminants that we are really interested in are often bound to that sediment or evolve as a result of the breakdown of these organics. And typically what we're looking for is phosphorus and nitrogen, so or nutrient parameters. And then for sediments, the sediment is important because it blocks drainage. But you also have heavy metal contaminants that can adhere to that sediment. So bad stuff, nickel, zinc, cadmium, copper. And what you see here is a result of some models that were created by the Nature Conservancy for the greater Puget Sound area. And let me see if I can do this. Yes, okay. So if we zoom in to Mill Creek, I don't know if you can make this out too easily. Okay. So there you go. There's Highway 527 right there and 132nd. And you'll notice the difference in the, so this is a heat map showing the predicted concentration of some of these values. So total suspended sediments or suspended solids is one, but we can look at phosphorus. And I keep meaning to buy this necklace that is made of a mineral called apatite. And really pretty pale blue beads, but it's not just good for jewelry, it generates potassium. And in fact, this is the natural source for potassium. And it is distributed across the world in most rock compounds. But when we pull it out and put it in fertilizer, it becomes a bad character. So one of the things that we're really concerned with, and the State Department of Ecology is really concerned with, is this nutrient presents a big contaminant in Puget Sound. And in fact, the state has started creating a a nutrient permit, or nutrient discharge permit that all the wastewater facilities are going to have to start adhering to. So this is a modeled outcome of what they think phosphorus loading is here around Mill Creek. So this model is based on old formulas that transportation engineers used to design surface water drainage networks. But surface water drainage networks typically, for most cities, have been done in piecemeal. So you've got a neighborhood here and a neighborhood here and a neighborhood here. But looking at it overall, you don't get an idea or can't predict in advance what that deposition is going to look like. So this is their best guess at that. And what projects like this can do, where now the state is asking us to go out and remove this material and find out how much is being generated and over what kind of periods of time, also gives us the opportunity to perhaps examine the water in these catch basins at a later date and improve these models. So instead of them being a best guess, they are fine-tuned with some actual field data.
Can I ask 2 questions?
Yes.
So am I correct to assume that using that scale up there, that to the blue, to the left being blue is where we want to be?
Yes.
And am I, from the prior map you had up there and looking at this map, we are less yellow than a lot of the other urbanized areas around us.
Yes, we are. And that is that the part of the predictive nature of models like this and those formulas I was referring to is that these larger service value streets, the state highways, the larger arterials like Seattle Hill Road that see a lot more traffic, that are larger in design, wider dimensions, more lanes, they carry more traffic, so that generates more potential contaminants. So that's why that looks like that. So that's what you're seeing here too, is a reflection of Mill Creek largely being a single family residential location that doesn't have these large arteries through it like perhaps Linwood would. Okay. Okay, so now I have to try and get back to where I was. And that's not going to do it either.
Are there other questions? Councilmember Duque?
I had 2 questions.
Yes.
And one, because you said that this is predictive and, you know, all those, I was curious about some of the like yellower
Mhm.
areas in Mill Creek, specifically north of Thomas Lake. It on 35th, it was just like bright yellow. And so I was curious if we had any ideas about that. I know Pacific Topsoils is across the street, and I know that there's a I'm not making any connections. I'm curious to see, do we know of maybe why that particular area is so bright yellow compared to the rest of the area? Because it's actually not, it doesn't look like it's on the side of Pacific Topsoils. It's on the other side, but that's where there's
I
a
would
basin.
estimate it's because that is a signalized intersection. So that is one of the more heavy. So you have an intersection between a major arterial and a major arterial. And so that, from a predictive standpoint, the model would weight that as a location that would be, you know, high heat in other words.
Perfect. That, yeah, 'cause that's what that kind of language, that's what I was curious about, because it's not at there was no bright yellow in right at that corner in the intersection. It's just south of it. So I thought it must be where, 'cause that's where it drains to, or
Right.
something along those lines.
And one of the things to keep in mind with these spatial representations
Yes.
of a model is there's always some level of kind of, you know, a need to sort of snap to a location. So there's some, you know, buffering that happens to try and create a zone of predictability rather than a more, you know, pinpoint discrete location.
That's very helpful. Thank you. And then the second question I had is, you said that the state is coming to us. I think that was the language, or is, you know, maybe that's not exactly how you said it. That's just the note I have. Is there funding provided from the state for you know, in terms of like the phosphorus and removal, like those types of things? Are there projects or is there support from the state? for the removal, I think the time when you mentioned that.
Oh,
had to
cleaning
do-
out the catch basin.
Cleaning out the catch basins. and-
Well, so to speak. So for this project, the funding that we have used comes from the capacity grant that gets renewed every 2 years. Now, we just signed an increase that the state awarded all jurisdictions this year. So instead of that $50,000, we have an additional $25,000. We have sufficient funding, but it's a good idea to be prudent about how we're using the monies that we have available. But in this instance, the money is there through a combination of grants and what we have available through the fund on a normal basis.
Thank you very much for that.
Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank you, Angela, for bringing this to us, to our attention. I really enjoy hearing your presentations to help us understand things like stormwater and how it works and how to get down those details and how it affects everything. So I just really appreciate that knowledge and that information. So I want to thank you for bringing that to us.
Well, thank you, Councilmember. I'm glad that there's a recognition that stormwater is related to everything, which is why this permit exists, and it's written the way it is, and it goes so many directions. So this is actually approaching the end of this permit cycle. So when the permit will get reissued, they have already got a draft version of that. And one of the next requirements is going to be monitoring for canopy coverage and changes in canopy coverage. I don't know how much attention you're paying to other jurisdictions, but for example, the city of Sammamish had done a survey where they were trying to gauge public understanding of stormwater issues and just sort of water quality and natural resource management in general as part of their sustainability planning. And I looked through the questions that they asked and the public responses that they got. And there's a recognition that vegetation, especially mature canopy coverage vegetation, is important for air quality. But what I didn't see is that people are still not connecting the presence of vegetation to water quality and controlling for water quality and for temperature. And as we're entering into more increased temperature extreme regimes, that recognition of the role of mature vegetation in lowering existing ambient temperatures only works to our advantage, especially here in Mill Creek, where people have already embraced the importance of trees and you will of course be no doubt aware of that whenever somebody tries to remove one, which is great, but sometimes they do have to be removed. So it's wonderful that the community is engaged in already recognizing that this is something that in other words, we are already in a good position to take advantage of what the state's going to be requiring us to do anyway, which is monitor our vegetation, but that is very much a part of stormwater management. All right.
Mayor, I'm happy to make a motion.
Please.
Make a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an amendment to contract 2022-1692, a professional services agreement with the Watershed Company to increase the total compensation and expense not to exceed $288,956.00.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Just a quick fun fact. I read from the RIA 8 Commission about 2 years ago that some of the cleanest water that leaves the North Sound comes from Mill Creek.
I would not be too surprised by that. We don't have any industry, and I came from the city of Anchorage, or the municipality of Anchorage, Alaska, where I was a water quality analyst for the utility there. And we had residents who would move from the lower 48 and comment on what wonderful water Anchorage had. Well, the reason for that was that our main source was a glacial lake that sits within a state park. So land uses that were non-existent. And that's something that is definitely in Mill Creek's favor, is that recognition of how important it is to preserve trees, to preserve a landscape, to preserve the connectivity of all of that. That buffers us from whatever comes down the road that could be perceived as negative or is already recognized as needing to be regulated. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
City manager, take us into our study sessions.
Thank you, Mayor. First study session 10A is bringing forward the Parks and Recreation Board discussion on Cougar Park. As you recall, part of our ARPA grant funding process was to identify a number of projects that would be funded by ARPA. We gave the Parks Board an opportunity to provide a list of projects to city staff to review. Given their top priority, we thought it would be a good idea for, in the interest in Cougar Park, we thought it'd be a good idea for the board to bring forward this top priority and for discussion across council. So thank you.
All right, good evening, Jeff Doan, Vice Chair for the Parks and Recreation Board. And I'm joined with Tannis, Golebiewski, and Ari McDonald and Tyler Hogan. I'm also from the Parks and Rec Board. And first, I just want to say thanks, Angela, for the briefing on stormwater. I didn't think that I was going to be learning about predictive stormwater modeling tonight. It's really exciting to see that. And then you've got more. Okay, we'll connect after. And then Councilmember Cavalieri, thank you for sharing that fun fact. That's definitely something for our community to take pride in. So those are some exciting things. And then, yeah, I just want to thank the staff here for making sure I didn't have to operate PowerPoint and share on a WebEx, because that certainly would have added to the challenge.
Bless you.
Bless you. But thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, to share some of the insights from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. We're very excited to share with you some of the information about one of the projects that rose to the top of our priority list. We're going to be sharing some information with you that really comes from the perspective of the values that we see and the priorities that we placed in terms of this concept within the community. And at this point, that's what it is. Before we go into these slides, though, I also wanted to thank April Johnson. I don't know if April's still on, but I just wanted to thank her for speaking up on behalf of her community and raising what are some really valid concerns. I heard the traffic concerns, preservation of open space, as well as the alignment to the needs of the broader community. And I would say that those are all very legitimate things, and they're things that warrant further due diligence. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into this overview that we've prepared. It's about 5 slides. And again, we'll kind of walk through a high-level overview of really what led to us putting this at the top of our priority list. That includes a number of different ideas on how we can utilize those ARPA funds to best support our community. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Slide 2. Anyone? Maybe I should be driving. I don't know. Okay. 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 All right. Well, I'll talk to this slide. So using our high-tech graphical interface software, we drew a circle around the area of Cougar Park and some arrows that show potential ingress and egress areas. What we're talking about is utilizing this currently undeveloped space surrounded by 35th Avenue Southeast and 148th Street Southeast by Cougar Park as a potential dog park. We haven't defined the boundaries, how much of the space would be utilized as a dog park. We haven't answered some of those logistical questions, but what we can speak to is the thought process behind it and how we believe it aligns to those values and came to that conclusion around priorities. It is really important when you look at this, though, to consider the adjacency. So you have a school to the south. To the east, you have another neighborhood community separated by a large street. To the north, you have Venture Church. And then to the west there, you have Cougar Park. And then kind of adjacent to that is the Brighton community as well. So in terms of proximity, those are some of the boundary areas around it. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Some of the specifics around the concept of a dog park in this area. There could be a small and a large dog area. It would need to be fenced, whatever that final boundary was. It would involve limbing the trees there. If you've tried to access this area, if you're familiar with the space at all, there's some trails that kind of go through it, but it's really just kind of wild vegetation, a lot of blackberry bushes. The underbrush would have to be removed. There'd be a perimeter walking path that could have a couple of different uses to it. Access as shown on that diagram. And then potentially common amenities like a water fountain or a pet bowl that could help support any users of it. So those are some of the kind of concept elements. If we go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of the things that were top of mind when we were reviewing all of our priorities and what helped to move this up to the top. So first one was community needs. Right now, there is not an active dog park or community dog park within our community. There are spaces that are used unofficially as dog parks, which I think has brought some feedback to the board that those has caused problems in terms of wild spaces and in terms of school spaces. And then there's also some adjacent community dog parks that have been very popular. So those are sort of some thoughts in terms of the community needs, that there's benefits there. There's an opportunity for utilization as well as supporting the needs of those individual spaces. So kind of drawing pets away from the play fields and into an area designated for dogs is a win-win. Parking and access is a challenge, but there are some options here. It was mentioned that this area often has large events, and that would be tough, but it also highlights that there's some flexibility around the parking options. And we would really want to understand what sort of traffic do we expect to see with a dog park. Tambark could be a good model because I think we can design some of that into this space as well. So that's a question we would definitely need to answer. Feasibility was an important aspect of prioritizing this. In terms of like complexity of infrastructure, there certainly are some challenges from a wetlands perspective and the civil kind of design aspects and drainage with this, but it's not particularly complicated in terms of utilities or design infrastructure. So we wanted something that could be done within the timelines of the ARPA funding. And so that was one of the considerations. And then of course, there's that shared value of preservation of green space. So in this concept, we would keep all of the major trees, we would keep some of that foliage and that common green space that's so valuable to all of us, but we would make it more usable and we would also make it more visible. Because right now, things can be happening back there that we don't know. And we've got, different anecdotal reports that there's some mischief that can be occurring back there. So this helps to address that as well by putting some positive and constructive uses to it. So those were the priorities that we looked at. We'll go to the next slide. And some of the considerations. So I've hit on a number of these already. I'll hit on a couple that I didn't touch on. So there's value for people who don't own dogs, which is that, as a parent with small children, my kids love going to a dog park and watching the dogs. And I'm not going to get a dog anytime soon, but I'm more than happy to take them to go see other people's dogs. It's a fairly central location when you think about the proximity to other residents, and it's a really large space. And so both in terms of what it's adjacent to, but also the flexibility of where you place it within that parcel, you've got some options. And of course, some of the other ideas that we had put forward on our priority list were a lot more complex. And so I would be concerned that there may be some additional timelines in terms of the due diligence and design process that could risk the viability of the funding associated with those. So those are some of the primary considerations we had. I think we'll go to the next step slide. So for us, next steps, parking is a huge priority. We need to make sure that it's feasible, that there's buy-in from the surrounding community, and that it serves the purpose of a shared vision in terms of what a dog park can offer to the city of Mill Creek. We want to get that community input. We've heard from some of the neighbors in the area, but we really haven't asked broadly. This has been something that's been discussed within the Parks and Recreation Board, and we've gotten input through different community engagements, but there really hasn't been a full-scale search for input around that surrounding community. And then we would love to understand if there's other locations. So if we do have alignment on the concept of a dog park, if that's something that we would value in this community, is there a different location maybe that we're not thinking about? So those are some of the things that were top of mind for the Parks and Recreation Board in terms of bringing this forward as one of our top priorities. I'd also highlight that as you think about this proposal in this location, there's sort of a phase 1 or a phase 0.5, which could be, how could we make this space more usable and open? So is there sort of a brush clearing endeavor where we can remove some of the invasive species, look at some of the drainage concerns that are out there while we work some of these other engagement options, and we get some better data around a traffic analysis or concept, whatever it is that we would want to do. We've got some flexibility, but that's why we wanted to highlight it from the perspective of priorities and values. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions, and I'm definitely going to lean on the rest of the board to help answer as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions, comments? Just go down the line, or do you want to go ahead, Councilmember Stickler?
Good presentation. Thank you. I had two questions. Well, one question about the parking. So is the opportunity to just add parking to this area not an option? Is that something that's been discussed or?
Per the city engineer, we were told that it's not possible to add parking on the location because it would have to be too close to the signal at 35th and 148th.
Okay. My second question is more of a comment too, is of the considerations that you looked at. There's also the consideration of the number of homes in Mill Creek, which are prohibited from having fenced in backyards. And this would give them an opportunity to let their pets run. That's a lot of homes, a large number of homes that have that consideration. So I think I see the value in offering a dog park especially for, it's all a part of serving our community. That's a big chunk of our community. Thank you.
Others? Councilmember Cavallari.
Questions or you want comments?
Either.
Or both? All right, so as the board's liaison, I'm going to make a few extra comments if that's okay, if you'll permit me. I think as the city council's liaison to the board, we have a very distinct mission, I would say. It's to help be the advisor to the advisory committee. Doesn't deviate that. We try to, massage, help walk things down the aisle and then across the finish line if need be. I've tried to convey the impracticality of this park for several reasons, and I'll go into them here. One of the most important concepts for any project is that you have to have community buy-in. And I knew then we didn't have it. I know for sure now by the person that stopped at my house 2 days ago and asked me what I was trying to do by putting a dog park in his neighborhood. The citizens of Brighton raised very important concerns, and here's the list: the increased traffic, the increased noise, congestion, safety issues, and of course liability. And then not to mention the proximity to the elementary school. And those are just some issues that were raised recently. The time sensitivity of ARPA is why I tried steering the board away from this project, that it just seemed like it just wouldn't work out in that time span. Then there's the city business side to it, in the sense that best practices says that dog parks cost anywhere from $33,000 to $97,000 per acre per year for maintenance. We haven't talked about the budget aspects or impacts to the city. And probably the most important fact here is that I've been on the board for about, I would say, going on 12 years now. And about 9 or 10, we partnered with Snohomish County to fill exactly this void of a dog park with Tambar Creek Park. And so we have a very viable and usable space less than a mile from the proposed space that you're looking to occupy with the dog park. So For those reasons, I didn't think it made sense then. I don't think it makes sense now. And the fact that there's no neighborhood buy-in really just kind of makes this fizzle. And here's my worry. Here's my worry is that the time we spent moving down this path, we could have utilized the $75,000 on something more viable like stone etchings in Library Park and stuff like that. So I just hope we haven't missed the boat with potential other projects. And I'm happy to hear your comments or concerns, but you're probably wondering why I tried to steer the board away from it. All I can do is just really advise and help provide guardrails, but you're the ones that come up with the suggestions. Go ahead.
You said that there's no community buy-in. I live in Brighton. We haven't been surveyed. We haven't been asked. There was one meeting, a quarter of the, neighborhood, the 100 homes were at the meeting, but there was no ask. There was no, what do you think about, that didn't vote. So I'm not I don't see that the community has been asked in any official way for our input. There's an assumption that people are against it because people that don't like something are very vocal. But what about the people that do like it and haven't been asked? We haven't shared this idea to the community. And I know that because I live in Brighton, and so we can assume that people don't want it, but I'm not sure that that's true. And then also we have this idea of developing the space so that it could be used in this way in the future. So maybe that's phase one, having this space cleared in a way that people can move through it and we know what's going on in it. So maybe it's not, okay, dog park, but this is phase one, and then maybe in the future it's a dog.
Sure. But would you agree that that's a totally different animal than what's on the proposal docket here? It says dog park. And the ARPA money is very specific that it sunsets at the end of this year. So those are the constraints that we're running up against.
Oh, but I don't feel like the community is yet on this.
We also presented a list of 7 projects. So this is number 1. If it's not feasible, we have lots of other projects that are there and available for the council to look at. So I don't think that this is a totally different animal. I think starting on something now so that perhaps we can get to the rest of it after the due diligence of engaging with the community is done, it would fit into the 18-month schedule instead of waiting until we hear from them. Then there wouldn't be time.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Your presentation, I can tell that you've really went in through here and you've really thought out through, and you went through how this aligns with the values of the city, how this aligns with what you're hearing everyone wants. And I like how I can tell you put a lot of thought and work into this concept. And I see it as what you're saying to us is this is what you're recommending, but these are the steps that are necessary to get there if we're going to consider this, which I think is very pragmatic and understanding that there needs to be some community engagement to find out. There need to be studies to see if it's feasible, which really shows that you've really went through here and thought through this idea, and you understand the things that we're dealing with when we're deciding whether or not to move forward with this. For me, I guess I don't know where the best place would be for a dog park. And so I see that you do have things in here where you're discussing that we need the studies that we would need to do in order to decide. I do feel that you have all these ideas that you came up with, and I'll wait and hear what some other council members have to say tonight. But I wonder, depending on the direction and guidance everyone gives us, if we have done you a disservice by, if we're not in favor of a dog park by not just saying we're not in favor of a dog park at Cougar, so that you don't waste your time either. So I feel like you gave us all these ideas and you mentioned a dog park and we did not tell you no. We do not, as a council, we did not say we do not want you to look at a dog park. And so you basically took what we gave you and you're working with that. And so as a council, if we don't want a dog park, then we need to be clear and say that and not give you a hard time for following through with what we okayed for you. This was on your list and we okayed it. So I just want to make that clear that if this isn't a direction that we want to go, then we need to decide that and make sure that everybody has clear guidance. And I do want to make sure that you know that I can see how well thought out your plan is and that you understand all the components that are needed for this to make this decision and the community engagement. And I really appreciate that. And thank you for all your hard work. And we'll see what everybody else says.
Councilmember Duque.
Thank you so much for being here. I was lucky enough last Parks and Recreation meeting to be able to fulfill my alternate role, which I take with pride. And I was just really impressed by, because it was the meeting where they were going through their priorities and really thinking through strategically about what it is that they've heard from the community, them as volunteers, what they are saying is important, and really discussing how to, which ones were feasible, which ones just way too ballpark, what makes sense. And it was all based off of the conversation that we had here. So I'm really thankful that you guys are here and that you get to make this presentation. I'd like to address something that Mayor Pro Tem shared, and it was something about, it was the language that you said about us not providing them the direction. I don't ever want it to come that way. You're our advisory board. You should be coming to us, even if we say we don't want it. If you're hearing that people want this, you should consistently be coming up here and saying, no, this is what people are sharing that they want with us constantly. Even if we say, nope, then that needs to, that is part of that. That's the role of an advisory board. You're telling us what you're hearing. I would absolutely support moving forward with looking into the study, because I actually think a dog park is needed within Mill Creek. And I say this as someone who was on the Parks Board, who heard it from people. And we were, when there was funding for Silvercrest, looking into, is there a possibility for us to make a small dog park there, just a little closed in area, because there's a need for it for residents who don't have the fenced in areas, and for those so that they're not actually going too far, because some residents don't drive with their dogs. And so being able to have that close proximity to walk, and it's part of that connectivity of all of the areas. I will say that I'm always very kind of iffy on Cougar Park 2. I know that there was a previous idea that I believe Councilmember Cavallari was talking about having a pickleball court there. And I thought that would be way too much traffic, and it just didn't seem like the good fit there. So for those reasons, I remember going, well, if that's the direction we go with Cougar Park 2, to have a pickleball court there, it didn't feel like a good fit for me. But this, based off of what you've shared and the idea that we're not getting rid of trees as a goal, the idea is to keep it this wooded area. And we're really just looking for that fenced in, and there is street parking along, that area. That's the one I use. I never use the 2 spots by Brighton because they're always full. And so for me, it makes sense that we would use the funding to look into this more, which includes talking to the community, and not just the neighbors that are nearby, but all of our residents who would use it. Because even though we build parks that are hopefully used for people who are walking, that's not always the case. And we do go to those specialty parks that we, can drive a little bit further to. So I'd like us to continue moving forward with, even if the funding is not for actually building it, but the funding is to figure out what that looks like. I think that's what we're asking of you as an advisory board, to tell us what people are saying. And for us also then, if we haven't heard that, to go out and ask. And so I'd like, I don't know our next steps physically here because this is a study session. But I think it's very important that we would use that funding to figure out how to best meet the needs of all of our community members.
I'm gonna go before, Sean, did you want to say anything before I do? You don't have to, just giving everyone a chance.
I might as well jump in. We interviewed a couple of folks for the Arts and Beautification Board. I think we talked about that. And when the mayor kicked it off, he said, excuse me, to one of the candidates, look, one of the roles or the role of these boards is to be the voice of the community and to come to the council with options and opportunities where the city can provide services back to the community. And it seems like that's something that you've clearly delivered today. You haven't said, do a dog park on Tuesday that looks like this. It's, hey, we've done some surveying. You gave us some direction. We think that we could do something better with the space that's there now. One option is a dog park. A dog park could be somewhere else. A different thing could be in this park. Pickleball wasn't mentioned, but it was prior. And I just want to commend you for doing your jobs as a park and recreation board. I'm not sure it says none is our next step as far as a motion goes, but thanks for doing really good work. And I look forward to actually seeing this play itself out with advice and counsel from the community. So thank you for your good work.
Okay, I've got a few comments. I can't wait to schedule a study session in September to hear your other 6 options. I'm not going to support even looking for a split second at a dog park at Cougar Park as a resident of Brighton and as a dog lover who owns 2 dogs, who drives to Tambark or to Willis Tucker to take my dogs when they want to run outside of my yard. Parking is not a huge priority there. It's a huge problem that we can't overcome. There's 2 official parking spots that turn into 6 unofficial parking spots when there's an event at the school or an event at the park. Parking is a major problem that spills over into our neighborhood, and it particularly affects the residents right there closest to the park. During the summer months, when people would most likely use the dog park, the school closes the school parking lot. It's locked a good part of the summer. It's not going to be accessible. I would highly doubt the school district's going to say, sure, use our parking. People don't tend to park first on 148th. They tend to park first in Brighton. And I just don't know where we're going to provide the parking to accommodate anything like a dog park there. And I did also want to point out, we talked about Tambark Park. That's a county park, but the city has a big share of that. We paid for 1/4 of the land when that property was purchased in 1995, when they had visions of building, I don't remember, Mike, what was it, 10 ball fields when they bought the property before. Unfortunately, they did the wetlands analysis to realize they could only get 1 field in there. But technically that's a part of the city. We paid for part of that park. I think most dog owners will tell you they have no problem driving to the dog parks. I do share with you your idea of clearing some of that area back there. That is much needed. I don't know what goes on back there. I hear some things, but I don't go back there. But I do agree that that is one thing we should look at. And I think we could do it with something other than a dog park. I think we had a young 5 years ago come and testify. It would be great to have a soft surface mountain biking trail that doesn't have a parking problem or doesn't create parking issue because people are riding their bikes. It's good. So anyway, I'm not in support of a dog park at Cougar Park for a variety of reasons. I would love to hear your other 6 ideas, and I share your the idea that we need to look at options that could clear that area and open it up so that we don't have issues going on back there. But dog park is not one of them for me. Councilmember Steckler.
There's been really good points brought up by a lot of the council members up here. I appreciate everybody's input. I think what I'm hearing, though, it causes me some concern is we're talking about a dog park for the citizens of Mill Creek. And we're having a lot of input from the homeowners in Brighton. And that's an issue that, you know, I agree with the other committee member who got up. We haven't officially had an announcement or a query on that or a survey on that. And I think we're getting our messages mixed with, do we want a dog park? Or is it that we want a dog park, but the the citizens of Brighton don't want it in their neighborhood. This is a common problem I've seen on council over and over when we look at developing a certain piece of land. I remember this when we talked about the farm. A lot of people up in arms against a great idea, but not in my backyard. I don't want those people. I remember that comment being said. So we need to be careful that, you know, we're having a study session today. This is not a decision by any means. I do hear about this other dog park. It's not in Mill Creek. It's not a part of Mill Creek. I know some citizens have tried to get there. I've been one of them. I think if this were being built in a development like Laurel or Winslow, Evergreen, where you don't have any fenced backyards, you probably have some different opinions about having a dog park. Oh, yay, I want one. I don't have any place to take my dog and let he or she run. There's no way. And I do think Councilmember Duque brought up a good point. Some people don't just want to pop their dog in the car. So I think, this is a study session. We're bringing up certain opinions here. And I did like the comment that you are part of the board and your idea is to bring ideas to us. And our job is to give you our feedback. I personally am in support of a dog park. I think it'd be a great addition to our community. I think we have a lot of dogs in our community. I do think that other dog park is a ways away. And I think it's not something that a lot of our citizens feel is accessible, or, unless I got to get in a car and drive my dog up there. But if I just want to walk there, it's not an option. But I do think it would be an option for us to have a dog park. I understand the citizens have a concern. I love a dog park, so I'm supportive of that. I don't know about this particular one because there's too many citizens that have spoken. I think what we first should be doing is we should be finding out if this is something that our citizens want and would use somewhere. And then no matter where we put it, I think we're going to have some bad feedback. Whenever we have development in a certain area, we're going to have backlash. But I do think it is a good idea. So I'm just saying that from my standpoint as a one council member, I support a dog park. I do think though that we shouldn't let the one opinion of one development sway us from all the other developments that make up Mill Creek and all the other non-developments that make up Mill Creek. Is this something they would want to see and want to use? Then we can decide if this is the right location or not. One person said something very smart. If we did this as a dog park, it would preserve the green nature. And I like that. I did like that. Thought that was a benefit of wherever we put it. A dog park allows us to keep the green that we want in Mill Creek, and that's important to us. So maybe there'll be a different location, but I think a dog park is a good thing for us. Not that I don't like some of the other ideas too that Councilmember Cavallari brought up, but there's some really smart ones in there too that I liked. I don't know why we have to wait till September for the other suggestions. If we could hear other ideas. I mean, this is obviously your number one idea. You wouldn't bring it to us, right?
The others, I mean, all 7 ideas were presented and voted on and approved twice already this spring. I'd be happy to tell you what they are, but I don't want to derail the conversation.
Probably at other meeting, but this is the one you wanted to bring to us, right?
Yes, we were asked to bring the Cougar Park project.
That's the agenda item that was
Yeah,
noticed.
so I think we should stay with that one, but
I don't want to derail it, but.
no, but I'd be open to your other ideas, but I assume this is is this your number one idea?
It was
or-
tied for number 1.
It was tied for number one. Okay, good. Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to ask a question. How many council members have dogs? How many of you have been to Tambark Park, Dog Park? How many have been to Will's Tucker? I mean, there's Councilmember Steph, you're talking about, you're right. Maybe we need to look at appropriate or the need for a dog park. But the problem is, where do we put one? Look at those parks. On a good day, when you go to those parks, there's 20 to 30 people with dogs there. And look at Willis Tucker. Where is it? It is in a park isolated away from other residences. Look at Tambark Park. The dog park was specifically located so it was away from the residences on the east and the south. You get to it from 35th. It has a big impact on the residents. So that's, to me, looking at it anywhere in the city. I'm not sure where the city has any land other than Cougar Park that would be appropriate and not for a dog park. And I don't think Cougar Park's an appropriate location. You're putting a lot of burden on one neighborhood for the benefit of the community. And in particular, it's going to impact the people that live the closest to it. you know, I was part of the HOA meeting a couple weeks when this was brought up, and I do think of the 23 owners, I heard from a number of them that they were not supportive of the idea. So if we feel the need to pull them, I guess let's pull them, but I'm pretty confident I'm going to know what the result is going to be. So I'm just, again, not in support of looking at this. I think there's better options that can achieve the goal of opening up the park. And I'd love to hear the other 6 options and have a discussion about those and give some direction on those priorities, but this is not one that I'm going to support. So I'm not sure, city manager, what you want. Do we need to take some kind of vote on direction to look at this further? I mean, I'm not sure what the look at further is, because really we're getting into issues that are beyond the scope of the A&B board, looking at parking access and that sort of thing. And I'm not sure that's the type of thing we usually ask our A&B board to opine on.
And yeah, Mayor, if I could just respond briefly to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So all great concerns. And I think you just hit the nail on the head there, that from the board's perspective, you know, we've put considerable thought in terms of what's informed this recommendation. We're very excited about the other ideas that we have. We were specifically asked to bring forward our top recommendation, which we did here. And I agree. I think we've gone to the extent that we can with the due diligence within the charter of the board. We could spend more time talking about sort of our thoughts and perspectives on some of the concerns that were raised, but ultimately clarity on, you know, whether this is a viable project would be really helpful, because one of the things that this board in particular is very passionate about is helping to drive that change in our community. So if it isn't going to go, we'd rather know sooner rather than later, because our number 1B priority is something we're very excited about and would love to get that in front of you as soon as possible as well. But today we were focused on the dog park.
What was 1B, or what is 1B?
Yeah.
Just the topic, not going into detail.
1B was library park area to support an enclosed area for like tot lot kind of thing. And then also ensuring that Veterans Memorial was appropriately addressed in conjunction with it, and swings.
Separate from the mall.
No swings at the memorial.
Not enclosing the memorial.
Yeah.
Where are we on the
Mayor.
water fountain?
Well, let's not get too far afield. I mean, I think what I'd like to do, I was assuming the other 6 options you were referring to were for Cougar Park, not 6 options in general. So I would like us to have a study session in September where we talk about those and give some direction for them to look at some of these options potentially further. But I think we also, as part of that, should give some direction as to what other options we might want them to look into for Cougar Park as well.
And one of the things that would help us is just some guidance in terms of like how many options can move in parallel. Because again, outside of our charter is really understanding the cost and the logistics associated with design like what's the capacity of the city to support design on some of these things as they go forward. So should we look at 1 or 3 or?
Yeah. Councilmember 2K.
I'm absolutely okay with not moving. It seemed, I started tallying who I thought was a yay or nay. And so I'm happy to move to nay. And in terms of not moving forward with the dog park, because I think there's a lot more questions. And I really appreciate that you brought to us. And so that's the important part, is just like we have the your yearly tours of what's going on at the parks. It's that same thing. It's saying, hey, we're still looking for a place for a dog park. And if, you know, what we do here, and if there is a study session on Cougar Park, I would love for it to be something joint like we did with the Planning Commission. I think that would be really beneficial in terms of like really thinking through the future, and maybe even having like information of what is the parking there? What are those limitations? What are we doing? Can we do anything with venture? Can we do anything with the school district? Hearing from them what they might need makes absolute sense to me. And I think what we can ask of our advisory board is to give us these ideas. They've actually told us what those ideas were already, so twice. So we should all make sure to look back in our minutes, and I didn't mean it in any kind of way. I'm just saying, we, as a refresher for ourselves, having the Parks and Recreation Board, or having Arts and Beautification come to us and being able to speak to us in this way, and having it as a steady set to our agendas, I think makes absolute sense. And so I'm happy to, if there's a vote, if whatever our next step is here with this, I'm happy to put this one on kind of on the back burner because it seems like we don't, there's not a big, there's a lot more information needed before we can move forward. And I would like us to be able to keep going with that the other list of projects that are important and that we don't get sidelined by them.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. And you guys did a great presentation. It has nothing to do with that. My hesitation with it always has been is that these are ARPA funds. They're very time sensitive and very specific. We cannot fund a project based on what it might be in 2 years, what it might be in 3 years. We can't utilize the funds for that. So I wanted to stay, if we're going to do something in Cougar Park, in the here and now. And now I know the other 6 projects. I know they're all worthwhile. I'm happy to support them. But again, it goes back to sometimes maybe I don't deliver right, but sometimes you just have to say, no, it's not the right direction, which is what I've been trying to do.
At the mic, please. No, at the mic, so it's on the record and so the public can hear on the recording.
Well, I'm new to the Parks and Rec board, so I'm still learning how things go. And so I guess my question now is, are you wanting us to come up with more ideas for Cougar Park? Because we have an idea for the library park, for to enclose that area. So so I think we need more. I would say I need more guidance. And what do you want from us? Is it a plan for Cougar Park? Is it like, and how do we move forward? I guess I don't really know.
I think it's important that we hear all the options so we can consider them all and see which one there might be consensus that we want to move forward. And part of that discussion, I think, would be what other options would you have in mind for Cougar Park that we could consider in addition or to besides the dog park? I don't know if you meet between now and September to have a discussion about those ideas, but I'd be up for, if others are, for a study session to discuss all the options.
And perhaps it's something beyond ARPA. A year from now or 2 from now, that's what the board's role is, to move that out to the future.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why it's important just to look at all the options, because there might be one that rises up that's time sensitive that we may want to push forward with the ARPA funds, and there may be others that we want to consider adding to the CFP next year when we update it with the budget that we put into the hopper for projects we want to prioritize.
Yeah, we would be happy to have that discussion at the earliest opportunity to bring the board forward to share a little bit more on those 6 other ideas. We tried to apply that same philosophy in terms of priorities and values to that to provide flexibility in our recommendations so you could look at it. I did want to just highlight, I think it's very much on topic today, that it sounded like there was a lot of consensus around the idea of managing the vegetation in this space. I don't know what the proper term is, but
opening it up.
Yeah, opening it up, if you want to frame it as invasive species and is, the visibility of it, but just there seems to be a lot of those values that we represented just at the very beginning stages, as well as, not touching on some of or not needing to work some of the concerns that were raised if we simply work that piece. So if there's any mechanism to advance that topic, we would fully support that, independent of a decision around a dog park.
Well, the mayor pro tem and I can work with the city manager on figuring out which week in September we could do this. And I'm for, if the council's up for it and if the A&B board's up for it, doing a joint study session with both full bodies, if it works for you guys. That might be the best way to give you all our input.
I think we need to clarify from them that you want to do a study session on Cougar Park.
No, it's on all the options. And
Okay.
if they have a chance to meet between now and the time we have that study session, if they have a meeting where they could discuss other ideas that they might have for that park that we consider.
We did not have any other suggestions for
Okay.
Cougar Park other than opening it up and having it be an open nature trail
Okay,
that would go around the dog park or not.
okay. Councilmember Takei.
Yes, I wanted to just what Mayor Pro Tem said, because it's 2 different things. Where there's a study session, I think we're talking about for ideas for Cougar Park too, but the other 6 ideas that we've already all had them present to us, and I'm trying to look up in the minutes to talk about, but one is, I think, adult fitness equipment. water fountain updates, like there were these specific ones.
Yeah, but we haven't had a chance to really sit down and discuss them with them, the reasoning behind them and the priorities. So I haven't seen, if we've seen the list of prioritization, I just don't recall what it is.
Yes, I mean, well, they came to us already. So that's why, I guess that's the question is now that
I
they,
don't- I don't
well,
think-
well,
Yes,
they did.
I can
What-
look it up.
When, well, sorry, yeah, wait, so that we just keep, so that I just still have the floor. So all I'm saying is, I don't want them to be too different. I'd like them to be two different things. There's projects that they have that they want to move forward and use the funds and figure out from staff how to get them to happen. Cause they've done all they can do now. They've listed what they'd like to do. So what we need to do is say yay to staff to then figure out how to fund it and move forward with it, right?
It's
And
being
then-
funded with, it's being funded with.
Well,
ARPA.
sorry, with
We've already-
ARPA funding.
We've already approved it, the ARPA funding for the projects, yes. But they haven't come to council and presented is what Councilmember Steckler is saying, which I think we're getting caught on semantics.
But they did. I mean, well, they gave us the list
The
already.
list, correct.
They did give us the list. And you're saying that they didn't give us the list.
April 25th. At the city council meeting, April 25th, we brought you a list of projects and also February 7th.
Well, clearly some of us are getting old and don't have as good of memories as we used to, and so don't
Which is-
remember the discussions.
Which is fine. And I think that's part of this is from my perspective. This is the thing is they've come to us with it. We've said we'd like now more detailed information. I think what they went back to do is they then, I think you did additional detailed information and then you got feedback, I believe, like for one of them, the water fountains. And sorry that I'm speaking for the Parks Board in this, but they did get some numbers from Laurel on water fountains as an example. That was one of the projects with ARPA funding they wanted was to improve water fountains at our park. They went back, they got additional information. I think they got numbers from, I'll say Laurel, but it could have, apologies who it was. So for the water fountains, I think we're ready to move. They've done all they can. So now that's the question of limbo is now what happens? They've told us what they want. We said, okay, they got the numbers for it. So then I guess this is the question for city manager is now what do we do? Is it coming back to us? Cause now there's more firm details or are we, are we putting together a schedule of when these things can happen? What is that? What are those next steps based off of the priorities they've come to us already with?
What we do is we follow the process that we put in place from last year that would entail the Parks Board bringing forward all the projects and the staff would determine feasibility. I think we still have to prioritize these in a way that would align with what our internal capacity is to actually accomplish these tasks over time. The reason why the Cougar Park, I just got to mention too, is I had the board bring that forward is what's one thing that's driving these projects is the funding of these projects. And you can't just have funding be a key criteria for driving projects that potentially could be a long-term benefit for the communities. So some of these projects will last forever potentially. And yeah, so with that said, I think it's best that we probably prioritize projects, probably the top few. It depends on kind of what they are. Some of these are pretty straightforward. Water fountains, probably kind of low hanging and relatively easier to complete, but and looking at the list, there are some projects that actually entail assets that would be installed in a number of different parks, including suggested like Pine Meadow, like swings, or even Cougar or Hillside. So it's a bigger discussion.
Well, I know the projects have been presented to us, but Laurel, have we approved anything as part of ARPA?
So we did approve a general idea of what the list of projects could be. We did not say we're going to do this, this, and this. And so that's where we just need a larger discussion. I think the joint study session would be a good idea. So you could say, here are the parks we would like to have a tot lot in. Here are the parks we'd like to have swings at. Maybe these are some kinds of swings we would like to see. Do we want to change? Do we want specific fountains at each of these different parks? We had the fitness equipment. Which parks would we like to look, have those in? Do we need information put from Public Works? How much space do we need? I think the trails, we had different, like, I want to say mushrooms and different toy.
And Laurel, for this conversation also provided that the staff has the bandwidth and they fall within the time constraints of ARPA funding. So
Right, so we
I
just need to
think
have
that-
this laid out
exactly.
by the end of 2024. Spent by 2026.
I do recall that discussion, but I don't recall, it wasn't specific as to.
Right, so we will still need,
So do we need you guys to bring back to us a list with your suggested prioritization of those projects? Or do you want a study session for us to tell you what we think the prioritization of those projects should be?
I think we would appreciate a study session.
Okay. What, Councilmember Duque?
Well, I was just gonna say, but for us to come to us with the study session, I would like to know what staff is thinking about those items, right? So, I mean, we can, if we're having a study session to then tell you we'd like to go forward with them, then that, I don't know how to, I would need to know like numbers. I would need to know what are those things. I'd love to know what Councilmember Cavallari said about your prioritization of what is feasible with the staff that we have or what would be needed for it. For me, a successful study session has that input that you've looked at it. So we're saying here that Parks and Rec have done a great job. Thank you, right? You've brought it to us. It seems like now it's a little bit on staff feasibility. They're doing that due diligence part. And like you're saying, we need to do a joint session with us to have all of that communication. So we can say, yep, these are the ones we want to go with. Because that's where we're stuck at is they have already told us what they like, but they can't do the research for us for those parks because that's not their job.
Yeah, I think it's important. So like, I think even just bringing up a tot lot, depending on which park we go to, what size, that's going to be where it's more difficult for staff because right now the possibilities are endless. So even the material of the fence, if we even had boundaries, like, yes, council would like to see a tot lot. Let's look at spending no more than 100,000, that kind of thing.
So then if I can just respond back to that. So then my question is that would be hard for staff. Cause I mean, so who does that part in the design of like the new tot lot or exploration? Cause it didn't come to city council members didn't design Exploration Park, right? Like, and didn't go through all the particulars about each thing that they wanted. Was it, was it an outside firm that did it? Is that right? So then
The park board came up with the concept, and then once the council blessed the concept, we hired a consultant to design the park for us.
so then that's where we are leaning towards now is we need this. They've given us the concepts. We need to do a study session with feasibility to figure out which ones we're saying, yes, let's go ahead based off of the time, our priorities. And then the next step would be potentially getting additional help to meet those needs, to meet those timelines. Is that correct, Mayor?
I think so.
Perfect,
I
thank you.
think we're saying generally the same thing. in
But no,
different
because
ways,
it's also me making sure I understand this process about where we are. Because I don't want to go back to the parks group for you guys to think that you have another assignment to do. Now, you do technically brainstorming Cougar 2 ideas. If you think that's a priority for your board right now, you might also be saying, no, actually, we're really wanting to focus on these other things getting to the finish line.
Yeah, I think what we might need from staff is for each one of the recommendations, the issues they see from the staff perspective, what additional information do they need for a decision point? How big do you want the tot lot to be, or those types of things, so that we have a sense of what the issues are, the direction we need to provide. Mayor Pro Tem has been so patient.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say is, I'm sitting here for a while, so it's pretty much been said at this point. But my main point really was that I think we need to come, and I think this is what everybody else is saying, we need to come back, have a study session. We need to decide what the priorities are that that you brought forward, where we need to spend the energy and time, bless that and move forward with those things. So that's, I think, where we are. And then we can determine which ones we think are going to be the quickest that we can get done in the right time and focus on those. And then doesn't mean the other ones go away. We can go back and then we can move forward on others. So that's how I see this, that we need to have the joint study session, come up with what the priorities are, to start on first, focus on those because everybody has a bandwidth and then move forward. And I know I personally really want some water fountains. And also I am actually really excited with you bringing forth the idea about cleaning out the area at Cougar Park, because that is something that's really bothering me, is that I feel like the parks, lots of the parks need to be cleaned out. The landscaping really needs to be dealt with, and that's something that's bothering me. So I really appreciate that you did bring that to us.
Can I just interject?
Sure.
It was brought to my attention that there could be goats involved.
Oh.
I'm super on board with that.
Yeah, they do it in Leavenworth. Yeah, so
Perfect.
is it? Huh? I know. So are we relatively clear from the A and B or the Parks Board and the council and staff of where we're heading and to move this forward and not let it languish?
What will we be studying in this session exactly? Can we just be really clear what is being studied in this session? Could one person say, here's what we're going to study in the session? Because I'm not that person. So what will we study in the study session, other than goats?
I would say the projects
Yeah.
that were brought forward.
We're asking
and
staff.
Which ones we can do, how much it's gonna cost, mainly because there are a lot of different projects that were brought forward and we're not gonna be able to do all of them.
Correct.
Okay, so staff is going to come to the table
Mm-hmm.
with a subset of what the Park and Rec Board had presented twice and say, here's our prioritization on what our capacity is to deliver. I see two heads nodding and one person looking very far away and Brian seeming to want to bite me.
No.
So I'm not sure
That-
which version.
I think we're all saying the same thing in a different way, so we.
But
must
it's important. I think we've proven here that it's important that we say the same thing.
The
we've
ultimate
asked a
goal
lot
is
of
to
these
come out
folks.
of that study session, giving some direction on prioritization for the recommended projects the Parks Board has put forward. And we're asking staff, when they bring that to us, is to provide us with their input on the challenges or that they may see with some of those projects, whether it be cost, whether it be scope, whether it be staffing or whatnot. To help us make those decisions on prioritizing the proposals that the Parks Board has already developed. Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. Really quick. Can I also say in that prioritization list that we identify what can possibly be done with ARPA funds and what can possibly not be done with ARPA funds? So I think that would give us a good roadmap.
I think that's inherent in the issues with the staff is they might say this is a good project, but we couldn't get it done in the time frame of the ARPA dollars. So I think that is definitely part of the discussion. Does that help? Yes.
Yep, I was just gonna add one more piece. You've got this team of thoughtful visionaries that have helped to come up with these ideas and somehow I got in. But maybe what we could help with, because we're here to support you and we're here to support you, is we could bring some pictures of what we mean by these ideas.
That'd be
We
great.
can kind of write a little narrative, but like, this is what we mean. We don't mean like, we're not talking about, a giant facility or something like that. We don't need 200 swings. It's something like this. So that then you have something to kind of frame that off of. So we can bring that to the table for that study session as well.
That's exactly what I think would be helpful. And you're right with what you said earlier. You did exactly what you were asked to do as the A and B members, and we appreciate all the effort. And don't get me wrong, just because I'm not supportive of that one idea, but appreciate all the effort you guys put in on not just that, but on the other ideas you've come up with.
Thank you.
We good? Thank you. Okay, to another short discussion. Strategic plan planning consultants.
Thank you, Mayor. As you recall, on the 27th, our last council meeting, we had the opportunity to listen to two consultants, strategic consultants, in their effort to convince us who is more appropriate to help us build our strategic plan, long-term plan, anywhere from 20, 25 years out. So Director Brock will present us on the next
So
steps.
I was just gonna say, last week we heard from the two candidates that were looking to assist us with this long-term strategic plan that will range somewhere between 10 and 25 years. So we did hear initially from the Mejorando Group, and they are based out of Glendale, Arizona, followed by the Crux Consulting Consortium that is based out of Seattle. So at this time, we're looking for council discussion to identify if council would like to move forward with either contractor, and then if council would like the city manager to facilitate a contract that would negotiate the scope and cost for this project.
Before we get started, any questions on where we're at? What I'd like to do, and we might have to wait for Councilmember Cavalieri to get back because I'd like him to have the benefit of hearing everyone's comments, but we can just go down the row once. Comments and then a second bite of the apple so everyone has an equal opportunity to share their thoughts on what they thought. Our decisions are really to go with one or the other, or if there's not a consensus on one or the other, go back to the drawing board. But that's,
I think you asked for questions
yes.
first. Can you just spool out going back to the drawing board? What does that look like? So we know what options C.
Find a different consultant if there wasn't consensus on the two we heard from. So the three we had were the ones that we, between the mayor pro tem and deputy city manager and I came up with from various referrals and other sources. And we had three, but the one withdrew on the eve of the meeting. So it left us with the two consultants that we'd identified. So while we're waiting for Councilmember Cavalieri, why don't we go ahead and extend the meeting till 9 o'clock in case we need it, take care of that business. So till 9 o'clock.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, Councilmember Cavalieri, what we're going to do is just go down the row, give everyone an opportunity to share their thoughts on where we're at with the consultant and then give not rebuttal. This is sharing thoughts and give people a second bite at the apple. So let's start to my left this evening. Councilmember Duque.
I'm feeling all sorts of love from you. Thank you. I really appreciated both this presentation, and I took the time to look at not just the information that they provided and the presentation itself, but also looking at other strategic plans done by various groups within Snohomish County. Looked at some from the Arts Commission and just other organizations, and seeing kind of what is it that we're wanting. And what I wanted to share in terms of like first bite of the apple, my feedback is I would lean towards Crux Consulting because I like that it's a different view and a different, I think, questions, and I really appreciated the thought process. I think Mejorando Group was fantastic, and I liked everything that was provided. So it's not like, there's one I like way more than the other, in my personal opinion. I want to make that clear. But I like that that they're coming from it from a different angle, because what I'm concerned about, it's going to be very cut and paste from every other city. And I base that off of what I saw and kind of the questions that I get asked, and also the ways of getting the information and how we approach, or how the questions would be done. In an ideal world, we're asking our citizens, our residents, a lot of questions right now from this plan and also surveys and all these things. And I would love for us collectively to rethink how we're doing it all kind of as one thing. And I base that off of not asking the same, like a focus group, a Facebook post, but can we really think about who our users are and how then best to reach them? So coming from it from that perspective. And for that sake, I am leaning towards Crux Consulting, because I like the idea of a strategic planning group that's not what we have seen before.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I also am leaning toward Crux as well. I thought both candidates had really good really good background and feedback to give us, and they're both really good candidates, but really different candidates, really different perspectives. And I think what I liked about Crux was their holistic approach. And I really appreciate their view of how they looked at things. I really appreciate how they talked about how we need to find our values and stick to our core values, and everything is built upon that. And I also appreciate that they are a little bit different, because I don't want, Mill Creek is unique and different. I don't want us to be like everybody else and following the path that everyone else is. I want us to come up with a strategic plan that's us, that is our values, and take it to the next level. And I just really appreciated their view and felt that it was really holistic of the whole entire city, and the unique ways that they would go about getting feedback is really important to me, because we really need to be getting out to everyone. And so I just really appreciated what they brought to the table. And so that being said, I also thought that the other group is definitely a good option, and definitely knowledgeable. So, but I'm just leaning more toward the approach that Crux brought to the table resonates more with me and what I think we need for the city. Thanks.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I was disappointed we only had two to choose from. I wouldn't be adverse to maybe shopping this out for a rebid, to be quite candid. But if I have to pick one, I'll tell you why. It's Mejorando, am I saying that correct? Mejorando Group was really the only agency with any proof of concept, with any real world strategic city planning experience. The other group was so far out in the weeds and other things. I mean, it just didn't make sense. And quite candidly, this may sound awful, but they seem scattered to some degree. So I would not support was a Crux. I would not support them. I don't think they fit the criteria of what went out for bid. They're just consultants that maybe saw an ad and here they are. So I think Mejorando Group gave us plenty of examples, plenty of viable options and success stories to look at as far as what they do for a living. The other agency it's not in their wheelhouse. Thanks.
Councilmember Steckler.
So when I look at a agency, it's going to put together our strategic plan for us. I like to look at their process, and having been involved in developing strategic plans for a lot of different companies, organizations, and associations over the years, there is one process that is consistent in all of them. And that is that there's a process of collecting data, collecting information. And it's a journey that you take. You collect as much information as you can from as many different sources as is feasible out there. And the information is what drives your decision. It's not a personal opinion. It's not somebody's, hey, I think we should do this. The answer is driven from the data. And so when I was looking at these two organizations, and I was curious as to how they would approach their process. And the Crux group, to me, did not have a clear process. I didn't understand it. I was very disappointed that they had no city experience whatsoever. I was disappointed in her answer between a very simple question, the difference between a mission statement, a vision statement, and trying to be able to articulate that, which tells me you need to understand that if you're going to go into developing a strategic plan for an organization. Another thing on Crux was one of their questions: how do you measure the result of your strategic plan? And their answer was, well, did you use it? And to me, that seemed like a terrible answer. The answer to, was, did it accomplish the vision that you had, the strategic objective that you had? And that seemed to be lost on them. And so I was extremely disappointed in Crux, exceedingly. I would not recommend them or support them. I think we'd be teaching them far more than they could ever be helping us. And it'd be a waste of money. The other group, the M group that I was very pleased with their approach and process. I was a little concerned that we might be getting the slick presentation guy doing the presentation who was not going to be implementing the actual process, which is why I asked the question, Patrick, are you going to be there working with us? Because you sound great. You sound like you got a good handle on it, but are you going to put somebody else in charge? And I was pleased to see that, yes, he will actually be the person that will be working with us on a day-to-day basis. Not that happy that they're out of market. That's disappointing because they want to rely a lot more on Zooms and other factors, and how much would they be coming into our market to be doing research? Because a lot of this data collection is here in the city of Mill Creek, and talking to our employees, the council members, the citizens, the chambers, the other cities around us. What is working? What is the environment of the Pacific Northwest? And what is the right strategic plan? What other cities are out there that we need to be aware of so that we don't look like we're an also ran? For example, Edmonds is a great city that has chosen to embrace the arts. So for us to all of a sudden come out and say we're the city that embraced the arts, is that going to be a bad look because of, you know, what other cities are doing? So I think, again, data is what we need, and we need an organization that understands that, is willing to collect that data, and it's not going to give them their personal opinion or our personal opinions of what the strategic vision looks like for our city. The data will give us the answer. The M group is the only one I think could come close to doing that. The other group absolutely could not do it, in my opinion. And I would not be opposed, as Councilmember Cavallari said, if we wanted to actually go out and throw the net out again and see if maybe there's another organization. So I'm not totally enamored with M, but between the two, the only one I would even consider moving forward is the M group.
Councilmember Paddock.
I think a lot's been said about both groups. My perspective, without yes-anding or yes-oring on some of the comments, is that this is a long-term strategic plan. We have a lot of time to put this together. We should put it together with a group we, vast majority of us feel is the right group for the city. And whatever the vote ends up being, my vote would be that we continue looking for someone that fits the right ethos, the right culture to gather that data and synthesize that data and create a strategic plan that we're all going to be able to stand by. Because what I'm hearing now is we may get a strategic plan that half of us stand by or half of us buy into just by the methodologies that the other half is using. So
What are you hoping to hear from a different consultant? I'm just wondering.
I actually liked some of the way the Crux group presented the way of doing data collection. I think they're digging into a substrata of information through the processes that they use to get data out of communities that I think is unique, that I haven't seen from a lot of folks. So I like that part of it. I like the way it sounded like they would synthesize that data. I also like that a strategic plan does not deliver us a set of outcomes. That's otherwise it would be a business plan. A strategic plan takes us in a direction. What I didn't like and what I would be looking for to augment a group like that would be having that city experience and having more examples of the methodologies that they would use, more specificity. I'd like to actually see one of their plans redacted. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, but they did provide a few of his plans in the materials he provided.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, there were several. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant Crux didn't.
Oh, yes, that's what I was.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying that the Mejirondo group didn't do that.
Yeah, I don't want to, I'm not going to disparage anyone's work product and whatnot, but answering your question, those were the things I would be looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the Mejirondo group was the right group. I think the strength of the Crux group was engaging the community and maybe getting the information. But I think what's more important to me is someone that's going to help us interpret that and guide us towards putting together a strategic plan. And I put a lot of value on the experience that Mejirondo group has had with different municipalities, helping them guide through this process, and the fact that Patrick has experience as a city manager and knowing the inner workings of a city and how that could be applied. At the same time, I mean, part of the reason we wanted to bring these to the council is I think it's important that we have a consensus on who we use. That's why I asked the question. I'm torn about going back out because I'm just not sure 4 months from now if we're going to be any different spot, having any different discussion than we're having today with these two. So I'm not sure what we're hoping to hear that we didn't hear from either of these two groups to make a decision. But I guess if my first choice would be the Mejorando group. Second choice would be to do a formal RFP soliciting proposals that we could consider in September to revisit this. So with that, we've been through once. We'll give everyone a second bite at the apple. Were you pressing your button? Huh? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Staff?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I'm hoping I'm speaking on behalf of the staff, but given that it's pretty much split, I think it's important that you at least hear my thoughts about kind of what I am and hopefully our staff staff is looking for as well, and someone who would be able to put together something that'd be clear and concise as to kind of where we want to be in those number of years looking forward. I've seen quite a few presentations by consultants that put together plans, long-term plans for companies. The Mejorando group, I felt, was far more prepared. And he knew without even telling him what our needs were, kind of what we were looking for. Even in our previous discussions prior to coming to council, the Crux group, and as did the other one that dropped out, for example, wanted more explanation on kind of what they needed to bring forward to council. Mejorando group, he already knew, I think, to some extent, because he's done this so many times. Yeah, it may seem kind of cookie cutter in some ways, but it is clear to me that he was more prepared. He knew what we needed because he was a city manager. He's had experience working, putting together plans. But I think if we gave him direction, he would understand and cater it towards what our needs would be exactly. And it would be less cost to us too as well, I believe, in the long run. We spent tremendous time teaching Crux kind of how the city works, government. I think there'd be a huge learning curve for Crux, and that's what I heard from our staff. So.
Yeah, and but other comment, are you finished?
Yes.
Because where we're at, what I heard is 3 that would prefer Mejorando group, 2 lean towards Crux, but could go either way. It wasn't a strong, and then Sean was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't say it was somewhere in the middle. I didn't feel right about the Mejorando group. I just didn't feel the click. I felt it was, I guess now I am gonna have to say the things I didn't like about him. So appreciate calling that out. I felt like it was, this is the pitch we give, regardless of the city you are. The examples that they shared were outdated. They were from many years back. They weren't not necessarily representative of our city. And if that's their business, then I would expect to see something that would be up to date and it would be consistent with the size of our city. One thing that I really appreciated about what Patrick specifically said was that, hey, there aren't a lot of cities that are looking out further than 5 years. That's not something we usually see, which means that's not something they usually do. So if what you're really concerned about is seeing what people have been able to do in the past, they're not ones that do it because they haven't done it before. But I did like his use of scenario planning, which is a tried and true strategic planning tool. So it just didn't feel like he was that was the right group for us. And my concern when you do work like this is if you don't have buy-in from the beginning on who the folks are, you're going to question the outcomes that they deliver. And that's not fair to the consultant. It's not fair to the staff. It's not fair to us.
that's why we're having
So it
this
seems like we
discussion.
need to take some time to, no, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to sell perspective, but that's why I feel like, let's keep looking. This is a 5 to 10 year plan. Let's take another 6, 12 months.
Any other thoughts, comments? Is that a no, or are you just waiting to push your button?
I had it pressed because I was gonna say, I try not to disparage companies, right? Whether they're listening or not, and saying whether I think the way they do business is not right. So I thought I kept it, I said it the way I said that I would prefer Crux, and I was trying not to, because I just don't work that way. But yes, I would agree that I am, Crux was, yes.
Well, what I'm hearing, I mean, again, remember his history. The city has tried this one time before. And the plan was approved 4-3 for a strategic city plan, which isn't much of a strategery when you don't have consensus. And so that's why I thought it was important that we have a consensus from the outset. So I would rather, as much as I think that Mejorando Group is a good fit for us for doing this, if 6 of you don't, or 5 of you tonight don't agree, then I think it's worth a couple months to put out a formal RFP and encourage both of them to submit and others to participate as well. That got the lights going. Councilmember Steckler.
Let me just to rephrase, I actually liked the Mejorando Group. I felt they did have a handle on cities. They did have a handle on the issues that are facing cities and some of the questions they would ask in the process that they would take. So I liked actually everything about them. I think that they would be a great asset for us, and I think they could take us forward, and I think they could help us to create that plan. The only negative I had was the fact that they were out of market, but that's why I wanted to hear what the city thought too. If they felt that they could work with the Mejorando Group, I actually do support them. The Crux Group, the part that I'm just struggling with is that they don't have the experience, and the answers to their questions caused me great concern. So I didn't think they really had a good understanding of what it would take to put together a strategic plan for the city. And I felt that they were somewhat scattered in the approach that they took to us. Their presentation didn't have a clear, to me, message as the Mejorando Group did. They had a better name. It's easier to say. Crux is easier, but that's about the only thing. I would support the Mejorando Group. If we wanted to go with Crux, I would not feel comfortable with that and feel it would be better to keep looking for another organization.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I was gonna say, basically, my thought was was what you alluded to. I think we started this process and we wanted to have council input on who we were going to use for our strategic plan specifically, because the mayor and I wanted to make sure that we had council buy-in from the beginning, because it's our plan. And what I'm seeing is that we have a 3-3, and Connie would, or Councilmember Allison would make it 4-3, depending on which way she would go if she were here, which is still a divided council from the beginning. And so I think in order to do this right, we do need, I agree, we need to go back out and bring forward more candidates to the drawing board, because starting off a 4-3 from the get-go is setting us up to fail.
Councilmember Paddock and then Councilmember Cavallari.
I wasn't going to add anything about the other two groups. What I was going to ask is, one of the things we asked the Park and Rec Board, and one of the things I mentioned in the appointment interview, was the benchmarking. Maybe before we just send out an RFP, we ask the staff, or I don't know if we take it on ourselves a little bit, to say, what are the cities that have strategic plans, long-term strategic plans, 5 to 10 year strategic plans? How did they put those plans together, and who did they work with? If we could get a sample set of 5 or 6 cities like that, it might save us from just casting a wide net out to the market.
To you.
Thanks, Mayor. I know about as much about picking a strategic planning consultant, long-term guy or gal, than I do about floral arrangements. So that's why we hire our city staff. So if there's a default here, my mechanism would be to say, hey, staff, who do you want to work with? And maybe we shouldn't be getting so far into the weeds, the council on who the group and who we like and start judging them basically on the presentation. I think the staff is going to have to work with them. I think they should be the gold standard, or to use Sean's word, the benchmark that we look to eclipse.
Unfortunately, I'd say too late. That cat's out of the bag. The fact that we've already gone through this and it's either way, 4-3, we've poisoned the well. If we go to the staff and say, who do you like? Four are going to be like, oh, that makes sense. And 3 are going to say, not sure that's going to turn out all right.
Yeah,
My opinion.
I think we're at the point where we're gonna be giving staff direction to go out with an RFP. I just want us to go into it with our eyes open. I don't want us to, I'm afraid we're searching for a unicorn. I mean, there's a reason why there weren't a lot of consultants. I mean, what we heard, I'll get to him, I saw his hand.
Okay.
Is that what we heard, and we had the benefit of having an additional time with each of the consultants because we met with them for 15 minutes just to prep them and answer some of their questions they had for what to expect with the interviews. And what we heard is there's not many cities doing plans out beyond 5 years. So I think that's my concern with sending it out is we're going to be right back in the same spot talking about the same groups in 3 months that we could have been moving forward with the process. But city manager, you want some input?
One of the concerns, I think, was that he's out of state. But we never did ask him if he'd be willing to come here in person as well. So Mr. Barra might be able to work with us on site. I don't know that. Deputy City Manager had some comments about RFP and all the requirements that would take also to go out with RFP, which would take some time. But another comment just quickly too before she speaks is I'm not so sure that a 4-3 vote would mean that the other 3 would not commit to the process should they not get voted down. So I don't know if that's relevant at this point, but once we make a decision, I think everybody's in. That's why I see it. But
And one other comment, I mean, this would be direction to negotiate a contract with this consultant and having them propose a formal scope of work and a budget. And so they would be coming back to us for final approval. And if we didn't like the scope of work or wanted to change it with whatever group, that's something that's in our prerogative as well. City Manager?
yeah, one more thing, sorry, for Laurel. I just prefer of the 2, Mejorando group. I don't think Crux is qualified enough to help us moving forward. So the other option would be to go out. So that would be my suggestion. And I'll let our deputy city manager comment on the RFP process.
Yeah, tell us what that would entail.
Yeah, so I was gonna start with, I do know that he does fly all around because he was saying that he would be close by. And I know he's worked with 5 or 6 cities around this area. So he's very familiar with the Puget Sound area. The other piece is with this being a 25-year plan or 10 to 25, this is not something many strategic planning consultants that have worked for cities, they're not gonna have that kind of experience. But as well, along that same vein, we're going to have to know exactly what we need if we're going to create an RFP. And I know council has had a very hard time even pinning down what a scope of a strategic plan is. So that is where I'm very hesitant to try to put out a formal RFP trying to lay out exactly what we're doing and how it's going to be done. So that is my main sticking point, but I am completely happy going out again. I just don't know if we want to do a formal RFP.
Mayor, I'm willing to tempt the water and make a motion.
Okay.
Motion to direct city manager to proceed with Mejorando Group as the consultant for the city's long-term strategic plan and to authorize the city manager to facilitate a contract negotiating the scope and cost.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, oh, I'm
discussion.
sorry. I'm sorry, didn't see the hands. You don't know, oh,
If you.
you guys have buttons too? Okay, I didn't realize, your mics were always on, so I've now turned them off, so you don't have to sit there and wave your hand, just press the button and I'll see it go on. This technology thing confuses me. Is your mic on?
Can't hear you.
Okay.
I fixed all the muting.
Okay,
I muted him.
if you would like, we can have him come.
You can use your microphone, Laurel.
No, okay. If you'd like to speak with him, we could bring him in for like when we do if we bring a contract, if that's what you want to do. So you could speak with him again.
Okay.
Sure. I think there's a motion on the table.
Any other discussion? Was there a second? I'm sorry, John, Councilmember Steckley, you seconded it, correct? Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
The motion, any abstentions? The motion fails to pass. It was tied 3-3. Are there any different motions?
Move to complete an RFP and go back out looking for new consultants for options to create our strategic plan.
So I'll second just for the conversation.
To partake in the conversation.
Okay, Councilmember Duque.
Not super relevant to this. I would be happy to go back to Mejorando group not with an RFP, not approving this, but going back because he said he would come back and voice my concerns, or not because whether they're concerns or not, but more like, these are the things I would like more detailed. This is what we've heard from others. And, how will you get that, that surveying? Because I felt it was too cookie cutter, but it was also just we said, give us a 10-minute presentation. And it was, it was like, this is, what I do. And so I think I would be happy to hear back from Mejorando group to hear more about like those specific things that I would like us to approach long-term strategic planning differently than maybe it felt for what they do. So I will probably vote no against this motion because I'd like us to just ask to have to move forward with speaking back to Mejorando group. I don't know if that we also need for Crux because it seemed that that might, I wouldn't know if I'd want to move forward with Crux, not because I really did appreciate their brain and how they thought creatively and differently. And it's not the linear way that keeps us stagnant, but because staff has said that they would prefer to not work with them. And so that's why I'd like to hear more from Mejorando group in that way.
I'm happy when the time comes to make a motion with the caveat that they come back.
Well, there's a motion on the table and for purpose of discussion, Mr. Rabara is on. I'm sure he'd be willing to answer questions if that was the will of the council to get his input and ask some of these questions tonight. So he's on the screen.
I believe I was next, if you were.
Yes, you were. I'm sorry, I meant to Councilmember Paddock.
Thank
Your
you.
turn.
I would vote no on the motion to do another RFP because it sounds like at minimum, we could look for other sources of this type of strategic planning exercise without having to go to RFP. It sounds like RFP is the hardest path to take to do this. I would very much like to see who other cities have worked with that have plans that we like. One, and two, I agree. I would at this point not vote for Crux for the same reasons I would not vote for Mayor Rondo. It's if it's not 6-1 or 5-2, I wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward.
Should I rescind the motion on the table and word it differently?
Well, and there's a point of fact, in fairness to staff, they did provide us a number of examples back when we had this discussion several months ago of the other plans from other cities that we directed everyone to encourage them to take a look at to get a sense of what other jurisdictions were doing.
Sounds like we should look at those again.
So I'm utterly confused of what motion is on the table or not on the table. Is the motion withdrawn?
I will withdraw my motion.
Does the second have to approve the withdrawal of the motion? Does the second concur in that?
Yes.
Okay, so there's no motion on the table.
So
A motion,
No.
do we need a motion for what?
Mayor.
Just a sec, let's hear from the city
A
attorney.
helpful suggestion, maybe what you could do is you could just direct staff to engage with the consulting community and come back with some other suggested consultant options.
Boy.
So that would be, I think, perhaps the motion you'd want would be just to direct staff to come back with additional consultant options.
Okay, move to have staff come back with additional consultant options.
Second.
Discussion?
Mayor, I have, I've heard from the city who are going to be working hand in hand with this consultant, that they are happy and would be very interested in moving forward, if I'm reading this correctly, with the Maharando group. And based on, their input, that has an even greater impact on me that this is the right group for us to go to. And I would in fact request a different motion that I would put on the table if this does not pass, because I would not support going back out and doing another RFP as deputy city manager. Well, I thought that was looking at other consultants. Isn't that's okay, look at other consultants, do another RFP, open this back up again. I think the Maharando group could provide us with the input that we need, can provide us with the direction that we need. The city is comfortable in working with them. And I'm not supportive of looking at any other group. So in discussion of the motion on the table now, that's my opinion.
Others got, oh, I'm sorry. You had your choice. Turn, Councilmember Cavallari.
I don't have any questions, Mayor. I'm prepared to vote, and then I'll have a question or two after that.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, which is to direct staff to come back with additional options and consultants to help us with our strategic plan. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? We are tied once again.
Must be why we have 7 members on this council.
Councilmember Cavallari.
Thanks, Mayor. I think you pointed out the obvious that, I mean, I've been staring at the whole time and didn't notice it, but Mr. Ibarra is, he is on the screen. What's your take on all of this?
Before we do it, I think we need to have a consensus of whether or not the council wants to hear from your
I thought you
input.
said, go ahead.
No, we're not there yet. So we're still waiting for a different motion or some motion to be put back on the table since we seem to be deadlocked.
I'd like to make a motion, Mayor.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion directing the staff to ask the Maharando group to come back with a specific proposal for us to consider and to allow the council to have direct interaction with the Maharando group at that presentation to address certain concerns and other questions that we have to see if we wish to move forward with the proposal that they would be presenting.
For conversation's sake, I will second that motion.
Discussion.
Is this where we can potentially seek out Mr. Ibarra?
No, I think
No.
the motion was to have him bring back a proposal at a different date. And
I
when
was
that is
just gonna
brought-
ask if that changes anything.
Well, if that's your comment for discussion, that is the comment.
I'll guess I'll say out loud, no discussion on my end doesn't change what I voted for originally. Which is to go out and find other suppliers.
Any further discussion?
Again, for discussion purposes, Mayor, this would provide an opportunity for people who have concerns to actually be able to address them directly to the Maharando group, which we weren't allowed to do during the presentation. So that's what I would like to be able to do at this next juncture, is allow people to have that direct conversation.
People could make a motion to have that direct conversation.
That was
tonight.
part of why he come back with a proposal and have a direct conversation with us.
Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions?
We're not gonna get anywhere tonight.
Okay, let's do something we can agree upon. Can we have a motion to extend the regular meeting till 9:30? Maybe we can't even agree on that tonight.
Move to extend the regular meeting to 9:30.
Second.
All those in favor of the motion, discussion?
What are we going to discuss in the next 45 minutes?
It doesn't mean we have to go to 9:30. It just gives us we have more business we have to get done on the agenda tonight. So it doesn't mean we have to go till 9:30. It's up to us how long we go. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes 6-0. Okay, so we're at, does anyone have a desire to hear from him tonight? Take advantage of that. If people had concerns about him, talking to him tonight?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay,
I'd like a motion to inquire with Mr. Ibarra to maybe belay some of the concerns of my current council.
Second.
discussion? No discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
We have a motion to extend the regular meeting till 10? So, I guess our other option is to wait a couple weeks. Well, in a couple weeks, I might not be able to be here. We'd be at 6 again because I was gonna say another time when we have Connie. But that wouldn't be until September.
We wouldn't get a chance to get till September.
My post-op appointment got scheduled for conflicts with our last meeting in July, so I'm not gonna be able to attend our last meeting in July. Unless we wanted to do a special meeting in August.
I would support the special meeting in August so we can move forward. I hate to wait till September, stop the process down.
This is a 10-year plan. Why are we rushing? 10-year plan. We want to get this done in the next 4 hours. 10-year plan.
City manager.
Advisement for our city attorney that we can carry this to the next meeting. The deadline.
It's fine with me. If we want to table it, we can.
To the next meeting.
Yeah, I won't be be able to be part of that discussion, but. So we might be still at 6,
Yeah, they could.
possibly.
It'd be 6 again.
Find
Since we're
out.
in discussion mode, again, I think this just illustrates why we all need to be close to the same page on who we pick.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just. Again, I go back to the unicorn we're trying to find. I'm just not sure what it is. Still don't know what it is that we're looking for.
Right. That's a good point.
That's right. What's the will?
Move to the next topic.
We need a motion to the table or anything? We can just move on. Okay, but hearing no consensus on this topic tonight, we will.
I'd like a motion to table tonight's vote, push it out to next meeting.
just
Yes, point.
if I could help you with the framing of the motion, you don't
Thank you,
need,
Grant.
I mean, you don't want to table it.
Yeah, 'cause then
Because that has parliamentary consequences
Yes.
you'd have to have a vote to bring it back. So my recommendation is if you want to just move on, you've had a
Move
discussion
on.
tonight, you're not ready to make a decision, you don't need to take a vote on it.
Let's just move on.
Withdraw.
Well, let's go on to something more contentious, the consent agenda, city council meeting minutes of June 27th, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The consent agenda is approved unanimously. City manager, your reports.
Thank you, Mayor. This is more of a reminder that the council, I think we all we're planning to cancel these.
Next week's.
Do we want to cancel these? July 11th,
Why were,
next council meeting.
why were we canceling July?
We'd only have 4 people.
Only have 4 people. Yeah, 4 council members here.
You don't have me or
Oh, what a quorum.
No, we have
It's
a quorum, but
Yeah,
I'm
why
not
would we
sure,
cancel then? It's a quorum.
because I'm not sure what business there is that's gonna get done without the input of all 7 of us.
Well, take another vote on the consultant.
Well, again.
What four are gonna be here?
The 3 of you, who's the third that's gonna be gone?
Me and you are gone, both of us.
I thought there was one other that's gone too.
I'm not.
We might be down to 5.
I'll be here.
Okay.
So we're losing 2 members.
Yes.
So we'd have 5, which is a good
I
number.
believe it's 3. I believe Mayor Pro Tem and
I had Cavallari down
For which date?
11.
for July 11th as a no.
I'm here. I'm gone the following week.
So. Yeah, we're gonna lose two members. That's
Well,
all.
do you have we can talk about, well, I guess we need to decide tonight. Were you gonna have much of an agenda to be able to put on next week?
we currently have no agenda for next week. But we can create one if you.
Well, we got the consultant vote.
We
We're
do.
losing one of each over here. Over.
We do not want to do the consultant vote with members gone. On purpose.
Well, we were
That's
doing
really
it
crap.
I wouldn't support that either.
I guess I'm
So
just
the
confused why we're not.
staff is recommending that we cancel next week because being down at least
still
2
not.
members for sure. And without a scheduled agenda having been prepared yet. So
That is
this
correct. On the 11th, we don't have anything on the planning agenda. The next meeting of the 25th is what we have agenda items for at the moment.
Are you reaching for your light? Councilmember Decay.
Well, I hope that if we don't do the 11th, that means that we don't do anything in August though, because some people planned, vacations in August because that's when we're in recess and not in July. Not anything, this is not a negative to anyone who did anything in July, but there was that perspective of, I'm not, it's specifically that. So I just hope there's not a special session in August that I would miss because we can't then do the work that we would have done in July.
There's
That-
not gonna be, there's gonna be a need to have a short meeting in August where we need 4 of us by Zoom to approve approve
Sure.
vouchers, but there's no intent right now unless the council has a desire to talk about something like, a long-term planning
But,
consultant.
and that's the reason why I'm just saying that would, I want to make sure that's clear that I would prefer that there's not one, and I want to make sure
That
that's
is
stated.
currently the intent with that limited exception of doing a short Zoom call where we need 4 of us to be able to be there to carry out some very small business administrative matters. Okay, so does someone want to make a motion for the 11th or not? We need, if we're going to cancel it, we need to formally have a motion approved to cancel.
I'll move to cancel the July 11th meeting.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
3-3.
What was the vote? Was it 3-3?
Is there no business to conduct next week? Is that it? I mean, or are we just intentionally dismantling the agenda?
Originally, we thought that there would be you, Councilmember Cavallari, Mayor Pro Tem and Mayor Pro Tem Mayor Holtzclaw, that were going to be out. We did not put any agenda items on the 11th.
And the only reason I ask is because, as we know, we're all going to be off in August, and I don't plan on, except for maybe an emergency Zoom meeting coming in August.
We've already said that there's no plan to do that.
It would take some time to put agenda together for next week, but I mean, anything's possible.
Sounds to me like this was a decision that was already made. Yeah.
No, it came from earlier when we polled the council and we were looking at options for meetings in July. We were under the impression that 3 people were going to be gone. And so we've been talking about it wasn't appropriate to do business with just 4 of us here, even though technically we could. So staff hasn't been planning on doing an agenda for that week and doing a full agenda on the 25th. Is that my math right? Yeah, the 25th.
I would say based on that, I'm prepared to change my vote.
Well, we can't change votes because the motion's already been voted upon, so we need a new motion.
Move to cancel the July 11th meeting.
Second, again.
Any discussion?
Yes,
Councilmember Duque.
I think it would be helpful making sure, and I'm changing my vote, obviously, or I'm going to vote to do this, but I think it's important that we keep our calendars with Adrian about when our availabilities are, because I don't know how many months ago that poll was done, and obviously our schedules changed, so there might have just, for us as a planning thing, if we had checked in maybe a month before what it would have been, to make sure there weren't any changes. I would like us to make sure that we're doing that moving forward.
Good suggestion. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to cancel the July 11th meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Abstentions? Motion passes 5-1-0. Okay. Any other reports?
Just an update for July. I'll be updating all of our partners, kind of a quarterly update to everyone. So July is the month I'll report on Q2. So that's upcoming for this month. So that'll be a busy month. And then I'll hand this over to Director Todd. He has 2 reports. Thanks.
I'll make two quick reports. We had July 4th yesterday. Want to report from South County Fire that there were 8 events that were called out specifically for Station 76. Those might have been outside the city. Other units may have responded. It was a very busy day. Those 8 units, or those 8 events, included 4 brush and bark fires from fireworks. 2 more at Gold Creek Church, which isn't within our city, but if anybody's experienced that, it was a crazy place. There were 2 fires there. And unfortunately, there were 2 fatalities at City Mall Lake Terrace, not directly related to fire, but hot weather. Some townhomes went up, some very old townhomes went up, and a couple of people perished in that. 50 firefighters had to respond to that. So it was a very busy day. So thank you to our firefighters and our EMS folks for doing the good work that they did. Luckily, no fatalities or no injuries related to fireworks throughout the county to speak of. Just remind you that the county council will be talking about prohibiting the sale of fireworks in the Southwest UGA at a future session, and South County Fire is supporting that, and the city may choose to support that as well. Remember, it's illegal to discharge in the Southwest UGA. It's an anomaly that you can buy it but not discharge, but we all heard a lot of stuff going on last night that was obviously within the Southwest UGA. So that's my comment on that. It was pretty loud.
Didn't we, Director Todd, didn't we already have an advisory vote on that issue about 4 or 5 years ago and it failed?
I think they had an advisory vote on discharge, and then a couple of years ago, it actually passed in the Southwest UGA only, not the whole county, on the discharge. So it's illegal to discharge. What the anomaly is now is you can still sell them anywhere in the county, but you can't discharge them legally. And I don't know if the chief has anything to add to that in terms of your response, but the fire guys were really busy, and that's where it went. Second one on our report, you may have noticed or may not have noticed, we made the decision, Keegan and his guys made a decision last Friday to close Dumas Road for 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. And that's about the only way to really take care of that road. So they mobilized, and 9 to 3 is our work hours for right-of-way work. All the guys stayed out there through lunch. We brought lunch in for them. And so 5 people, our 2 summer hires and the 3 guys on the crew who were in town, and then Keegan himself worked all day long, trimming back the vegetation, removing some deadfalls, removing some danger trees, sweeping the street, spraying herbicides. Hopefully the weeds don't come back quite so fast, and spraying that pressure washing the railing that I think Josh probably knows. It's been 5 or more years probably since we washed that rail. Just indicative of the kind of approach we're taking now. Keegan is very much in favor of this, and the crew is supporting him. That when we start a project, we're going to do the project and kind of do it right to get caught up on some of these deferred maintenance items instead of bouncing from one to another. So that was the decision. Hopefully we didn't inconvenience too many folks. We didn't hear a lot of complaints. We put out signs ahead of time. We'll probably be doing projects like that again, where they get the whole crew focusing on something to try to catch up on some of that deferred maintenance. That's the end of my report.
Sure. Councilmember Duque.
Thank you very much. I heard of that people knew about the closure, and the only people I saw on like social media were in Bothell community groups. So, which, you know, made sense. They kept posting like Dumas is closed, and it's like, oh, well, it's all over our ones. And I really appreciate the hard work. What I would find helpful is this report that you've just given, if it can also be shared on social media, because that's, or on the places where we announced that there was the closure. So if there could be something, we closed it, here's what we were doing. I think that is great and would be fantastic. And if there had been pictures about what it looked like after, anything to just show like this is where your I don't want to say where your money's going, but what our city's doing, I think would be incredibly helpful, and just huge applause to everyone who was out there, and I'm glad that you were able to do the lunch thing.
Other staff reports?
No other reports, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I got 3 quick things and an observation. The quick things are let Adrian know if you're going to want to RSVP for the SEC meeting on the 20th. Oh yeah. Second, congratulations to Scott and Jody and all the staff on another successful party in the parks. That was a great event, well attended. The third thing is, I know we've talked about this as part of the ARPA funds and the beautification of the city, but you know, it struck me when I was out walking my dogs after a light rain the other day. We invested $500,000 to keep the streets clear for cars with the street sweeper. Let's not forget the pedestrians and the cyclists. I was walking down Village Green Drive Saddle Hill Road from Village Green Drive to 35th, and I had to duck probably no more than 10 or 12 times to get under branches that were way down, leaning over the sidewalk. And then when you turn on to 35th, half the sidewalk is overgrown with the blackberries from that area on the west. And then we still have a continuing problem as a cyclist there by 151st with the vegetation growing out both right by the fire station and by the medical building on the other side. So let's not forget the pedestrian and the bicyclists in our city. And the observation, isn't it weird that in Snohomish County, you can buy fireworks, but you can't shoot them off? And you can smoke pot, but you can't buy it. Anyway. Mill Creek and other cities in the county as well. Anyway, Mayor Pro Tem, any report tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to say congratulations to all the staff that contributed and all the volunteers. I see Barb on here as well for an amazing party in the parks. There were so many people there. Everyone was having so much fun. I didn't hear anybody complaining. Everybody was just having a blast. And it was so great to see so much community out there and be working on these community building activities, because that's what brings us together. And so thank you. Well done, everybody. And it was really exciting to see how many people came out there. Now, the legislative committee is going to be starting to meet tomorrow to start to work on, as we start the steps towards next year's legislative agenda. So just know that we are meeting and working on those things, and that there will be something coming back to you in the fall to start discussing next year's legislative agenda, because 2024 will be here before we know it. And I do want to also add, I'm kind of glad that the mayor walked around kind of where I go through, because I also am really frustrated with the branches falling over the sidewalks and when I'm running in the rain, they smack me in the face and get me wet and make me a little cranky. So I also have noticed that we really need to figure out something to come together and figure out how we can work on maintaining those. Because I think that part of the problem is that their resident responsibilities, that they're going over the fences along Seattle Hill Road. And we really need to address that because that's what everybody sees when they're walking, and that it says something about our city when it's not all nice and clean and crisp. So that's really important to keep that in mind. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy 4th to everybody, belated. I plan on attending the festival as usual. And also I spent the morning of the 4th seeing the movie, The Sound of Freedom. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but it goes into great detail of child sex trafficking that takes place across the globe. But the #1 consumer is the United States. Be cognizant of that. It's now the most lucrative crime against humanity we have to deal with. Thank you.
Councilmember Cavalieri.
You again.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
I'd
thought
like
you
to
were done.
re-say what I just
Oh,
said.
Councilmember Steckler.
Thanks, Mayor.
That's another senior moment.
I wanted to make a comment on the chamber report that was at the beginning of our meeting tonight. A couple of things, and Councilmember Cavalieri already said it. They are putting on a huge event. This is a volunteer only event. I think there's opportunities for other people to volunteer, and if anybody can come out and volunteer, I would encourage them to do so. I will be emceeing the community stage on Sunday, so stop by and see me. I'll be there all day. But I think it's really important because it is our community coming together and drawing other communities into Mill Creek. I really like seeing that. I also want to say that I'm really glad to hear that the city is looking at ways to develop that relationship. I support the relationship with our chamber. Whatever we can do to better partner with the chamber, I think that's a great opportunity. I was a little disappointed to hear that we weren't a member of the chamber, and I think that's something that I would like to see rectified, and hopefully we can do that soon. And unless there's a reason why we would not want to be a member, and maybe I just don't know about it, but I think that'd be very important for us to be a member of the chamber. I know we were at one time, so I just want to give you my support on that. Thank you.
Councilmember Duque.
Party in the Parks was great. And just should have left it right there. I wanted to flag a couple things. I was part of the Snohomish County Cultural Arts Network monthly meeting that I always talk about, and I also attend. And I wanted to share, and I'll email some of you, or I've shared this report already with our city manager, but just wanted to share that there was a report called Future of Arts and Culture Project Industry Assessments. And it really talked about, the growth, decline, and competitiveness of the county arts and culture industries. And there was another presentation from the Department of Commerce in terms of the creative economy strategic plan. So one of the things I looked at. So if anyone's interested, I can email those resources out to you. But again, Party in the Parks is amazing. What a wonderful community event. And Scott and Jody and all the volunteers are just fantastic, really, for creating an environment where families feel comfortable and to get together. I personally had 2 groups that I showed up with. We just made it a big picnic thing, my HOA and then my son's kindergarten class that just graduated, where we just said it was a big meetup, and I'm continuing to do that. So I wanted to make this as a suggestion because all of those parents love that. So if you have friends or you're part of a group that isn't volunteering at it, this is an opportunity for you to maybe do a meetup where it's not at someone's house, or trying to create your own kind of thing. So instead of doing an HOA specific thing, we just said, why don't we all go to something already that the city has created? And it was fantastic. So thank you.
Councilmember Paddock.
Thank you, Mayor. We had 2 terrific candidates each for the Planning Commission position and for the Arts and Beautification Board. They were just fantastic. And what was really terrific about both sets of candidates is it was kind of hard to decide between each two for the one role. And at least for the arts and the beautification, there's a couple of other roles that are open, so they're going to be able to roll over into that. The reason I wanted to bring that up was all the folks came to the table super prepared and super educated on what it is that we've all been talking about here and the things that they're seeing within the community, like the branches falling off of Seattle Hill Road and the nightmare that is the 164th Street median and whatnot. No one volunteered to go fix that, but they all recognized it. And it just, you know, it's inspiring to know that the community is focused on the same things we are, or vice versa. We're focused on the same things they are. Last time I passed on saying party in the parks because Melissa had done such a good job. This time I won't, because that's in my neighborhood. And I just thought it was just like everyone has said, fantastic. You know, Jody and Scott did a great job. It was great to see Keegan and Angela there, Public Works out representing Chief White and his assistant out there, which was fantastic. It was just a great thing for us to have. And I think everybody really appreciated it. And the staff showing up the way they did was fantastic. That's it.
Brings us audience communication. Anyone in the chambers like to address council? Seeing none. Anyone online? No, no. Okay, well, hearing no objection, then I will adjourn the meeting at 9:10 PM and we'll reconvene on the 25th. We have not had that many tie votes since we're voting on whether